Chapter 4005. 13 pills was not a lot. Although a supreme-grade Foundation establishment barrier-breaking pill was rare, it was nothing to be surprised about. However, when these two conditions were stacked together, it was extremely rare. Hong Zhong had been the manager of the Hong Chamber of Commerce for decades, but he had never seen such extravagance. Haha, I am also preparing for the auction. If I do not have enough spiritual jades on hand, it would be useless even if I go to the auction today. Lin Yi smiled faintly. That's right. Although there are many good things in an auction, the price is also high. If you do not prepare enough capital, it will be a pity if you miss out on the treasure in the end. Hong Zhong nodded in agreement. After pondering for a moment he said, Young Hero Lin, I will accept these 13 supreme-grade Foundation establishment barrier-breaking pills for 15,000 spiritual jades. What do you think? 15,000 spiritual jades. Hearing that, Lin Yi couldn't help but be a little stunned. He sucked in a cold breath and said, Manager Hong, this price of yours is too high. I'm always taken care of by you. I can't accept this favor. The last time he came to the Hong Chamber of Commerce to sell supreme-grade Foundation establishment barrier-breaking pills, it was to compete with Wuxia for the Star Inkstone. At that time, the price of a single supreme-grade Foundation establishment barrier-breaking pill was only worth 800 spiritual jades. 800 spiritual jades per pill. According to this price, 13 supreme-grade Foundation establishment barrier-breaking pills would only be worth a little over 10,000 spiritual jades. Compared to the price given by Hong Zhong, it was almost 5,000 spiritual jades. Giving 5,000 spiritual jades in one go was already a big discount for someone of Hong Zhong's level. He could not be said to be unkind to Lin Yi. Hong Zhong immediately smiled and waved his hand. Young Hero Lin, you are thinking too much. Normally, the purchase price of a supreme-grade Foundation establishment barrier-breaking pill is usually 1,000 spiritual jades, or even higher. The reason why I gave you 800 last time was because you are a newcomer to our business. That's only because you're a newcomer who's trading with us for the first time. Merchants are used to killing people, so they'll definitely lower your price. But even if one pill is 1,000 spiritual jades, it will only be 13,000 spiritual jades? Lin Yi shook his head. That's right. However, in all transactions, other than the usual price as a reference, there is no other way. The final transaction price depends on the market, and right now the market is good. Giving you 15,000 is really not much, Hong Zhong said with a smile. The other party insisted. Lin Yi couldn't refuse anymore and could only shake his head in amusement. Manager Hong, this is the first time I've met someone like you. You're always giving preferential treatment to your customers, and at the same time, you're still trying to find a good excuse. If all the merchants in the world were like you, I'm afraid they'd all go bankrupt from losses. Hong Zhong laughed heartily and personally swiped a spirit jade card for Lin Yi to settle the bill. At the same time he explained, Young Hero Lin, what this old man said just now was not a lie. Auction items are usually jointly provided by various chambers of commerce, and the North Island branch under this old man just so happens to be in need of high-grade auction items these days. Therefore, Young Hero Lin, your 13 supreme-grade Foundation establishment barrier-breaking pills can be considered as timely assistance. This price is absolutely fair and reasonable. Since I'm able to help Manager Hong. That couldn't be better. Lin Yi nodded and then asked, By the way, where is the auction? Then, where is the auction? Last time, Hong Zhong had said that the auction was not in the inner street of the marketplace. Moreover, he specifically told Lin Yi to come earlier, indicating that the place should not be close, so Lin Yi was quite curious about it. The northernmost island, north of the Heavenly Stage Island, the northernmost island that can be explored. On the map, it's only a small place the size of a palm, but it's the most high-end place in the northern region. It's one of the top 5 Heavenly Stage Islands, a gold-squandering den. Hong Zhong introduced to Lin Yi. Although he guessed that Lin Yi must have an extremely deep but unknown background, he already knew that Lin Yi's identity on the surface was just a newcomer of the Blue Cloud Pavilion. For a place like the northernmost island, under normal circumstances, he should not have even heard of it. In fact, although the northernmost island was a famous gold-squandering den, it was the exclusive territory of the big shots. Ordinary cultivators were not qualified to enter and exit, and there were very few people who even knew of its existence. People like senior brother Ku Bai, who had been in the 3 pavilions for some years, knew nothing about it. The northernmost island sounds good. How do we go there? Linny raised his eyebrows and asked. Hong Zhong understood what Linny meant. He shook his head and said, there is no teleportation formation, so the only way to go there is by flying spirit beast. It will take at least 4 hours to fly there, so we have to hurry. While the two were talking, Hong Zhong had already ordered people to get ready. A huge flying spirit beast was on standby on the street. This time, in addition to Hong Zhong and Lin Yi, there were also 2 staff members who were responsible for helping Hong Zhong to go to the auction on the northernmost island. In the midst of whistling, the huge flying spirit beast soared into the sky and flew toward the north at top speed. Standing on the back of the flying spirit beast, Lin Yi could see that in addition to him and Hong Zhong, there were also more than a dozen flying spirit beasts on the North Island at the same time. They took off from different places in the same direction as them, heading toward the northernmost island. Looking at this scene, Lin Yi suddenly noticed that Hong Zhong's expression was a little strange. He could not help but wonder, what's wrong? Is there something wrong? Since it was an auction, the Hong Chamber of Commerce would send people there. Naturally, the 3 pavilions of the North Island and other Chamber of Commerce forces would also send people there. There should be nothing strange about this, right? Nothing. I just think that these people are a little too big. In the past, the North Island auctions would not send so many people at once. Hong Zhong said thoughtfully, pinching his chin. Lin Yi heard the voice and looked over. He found that there were more than a dozen people on the other flying spirit beasts, but there were only 4 people on his side. In contrast, it seemed a lot thinner. According to the past practice, the North Island auctions were held once every 6 months. This frequency was not too high or too low. All the forces on the North Island would send people to participate, but very few people would make such a big fuss. Basically, Hong Zhong and his 2 deputies were enough to deal with it. If more people went there, it would be idle. After all, it was not a fight, but a normal auction transaction. There was no such thing as strength in numbers. However, putting aside the fact that there was only one clan that had mobilized such a large number of people, there were at least a dozen people standing on each of the flying spirit beasts. Some of them even had more people. This was too abnormal. Chapter 4006. Shopkeeper How? I haven't seen you for half a year. How are you? So many of you. Are you going to the northernmost island for a big fight? Hong Zhong smiled and said to the leader of the other party. Like him, the shopkeeper of the North Island branch of a top chamber of commerce, whose influence was only slightly less than that of the Hong's Chamber of Commerce. He also had a big shop in the inner street of the market. In the past, they often dealt with each other and had some friendship. But in the last half a year, Hong Zhong had never seen him in the inner street. Shopkeeper Hao returned a salute and said in a somewhat indifferent and distant tone, Shopkeeper Hong, you misunderstood me. It said that the road to the northernmost island is not safe now. It'll be safer to bring more people. Really? Hong Zhong smiled non-committally. He wanted to ask again, but the shopkeeper had already waved his hand and sped away. Shopkeeper Hong, is the road to the northernmost island very dangerous? Do you need so many people to deal with it? Lin Yi asked when he heard that. After leaving the northern part of the island, there was a boundless ocean below them. If something were to happen to them in such a place, they would really have no one to help them even if they begged for help. Yes, in addition to the extremely bad weather, we should always be on guard against the powerful spirit beasts hiding under the sea. They have many means of ultra-long-distance attack, so even if there are flying spirit beasts, ordinary practitioners can hardly reach the northernmost island safely. Hong Zhong nodded. No wonder. Lin Yi was shocked. He had heard when chatting with the ghost thing that the spirit beast clan on the Heaven Stage Island had gathered a large number of super spirit beasts. But just like the back mountain of the North Island, there were still countless powerful spirit beasts in other places. And the vast sea had always been the breeding place of legendary creatures. According to the ghost thing, even the king of spirit beasts in its heyday, even if he ruled the invincible spirit beast clan, had never conquered the endless sea. The water here was bottomless. No matter how terrifying the fierce creatures appeared, it would not be surprising. However, although the sea is dangerous, as long as there is a master to hold the line, not to wander around randomly, and follow the route on the map, it is relatively safe. In fact, it's relatively safe, and the possibility of accidents isn't high. That's why every family in the North Island auction house only sent 3 or 4 people. There's no need to send more than 10 people, unless there's some other reason, Hong Zhong said thoughtfully. As he said that, Hong Zhong wasn't the only one who found it strange. Even Lin Yi, a bystander, could tell that something was amiss. When Hong Zhong greeted the other party, he clearly saw that the other party's flying spirit beast had more than 10 boxes of goods tied to it. In contrast, he only had 2 or 3 boxes on his side. It wasn't just shopkeeper house family that was like this. It was the same for the other chambers of commerce. The meaning behind this was quite thought-provoking. People of the same trade are enemies. These words were indeed true. Lin Yi could already faintly feel that his trip to the Hong Chamber of Commerce's auction would not be so peaceful. What Lin Yi didn't expect was that his premonition would soon become reality. Hong Zhong was an experienced and prudent businessman. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he would never do anything risky. This was the route to the extreme North Island. From beginning to end, he followed the theoretically safest route on the map. This was a route specially designed by an expert, and it stuck close to the edge of the territories of many powerful sea beasts. The chances of being targeted by sea beasts were much lower than other routes. Normally, not only Hong Zhong, but also other people rarely traveled alone. After all, there were countless terrifying sea beasts in the vast sea. Walking randomly was simply playing with your life. No matter how many experts there were, it was useless. However, this time, the other people who set off from the North Island obviously didn't play by the rules. The flying spirit beast under Lin Yi's feet wasn't slow, but just a moment later, he completely lost sight of the other party. It was fine if it was just shopkeeper house family, but more than a dozen other families also didn't take the usual route at the same time. This was too strange. It was obvious that they had discussed it before. What are they going to do? This time, even Hong Zhong couldn't understand. They were all in the same trade, and he had some understanding of these people's temperament. These people were not adventurous people. However, even if he was confused, Hong Zhong couldn't rashly change the route. The other party had a large number of people, and more or less had the capital to take the unusual route. But if he followed them, he would definitely die. For the next half an hour, there was no wind or waves, but both Hong Zhong and Lin Yi guessed that this was only temporary. It couldn't be so calm forever. As expected, amidst the strange calm, the long-brewing crisis suddenly arrived. The flying spirit beast was at a height of 100 feet from the sea, and above it was thick clouds. If it was higher than this, it was easy to get lost, and if it was lower, it was easy to be attacked by sea beasts. This was theoretically the safest height. However, at this height, there was a sneak attack from below without warning. Young hero Lin, stand firm. Before Lin Yi could react, Hong Zhong had already raised his palm and slapped down. There was only a burst of air, and the thin clouds below suddenly burst into a circle of water. This is... Lin Yi was secretly shocked. From the beginning to the end, he didn't feel any threat. Even after watching this confrontation, he still couldn't understand what was going on. Hong Zhong explained, "This is the water arrow of the flying swordfish. They can impact and glide up to 300 to 400 feet in the air, and then launch a water arrow attack. The penetrating power and lethality are very shocking. In addition, the water arrow is transparent and silent, and ordinary people can't detect it at all. If you don't guard against them in advance, you will be hit with a little carelessness. In this vast sea, it is a relatively common threat." I see. Hearing this, Lin Yi understood. If it wasn't for Hong Zhong, just this water arrow could make all of them fall to the bottom of the sea and be buried in the stomach of the fish. However, before Lin Yi had time to rejoice, there was suddenly a cold murderous intent below him. This time, even he could feel it clearly. Looking down, there were already dozens of holes in the clouds below. Because of the refraction of light, the originally undetectable water arrows were faintly discernible in the air. There were dozens of densely packed water arrows, and every one of them was as fatal as the previous one. This scene was simply enough to make one's scalp tingle. Even Hong Zhong couldn't help but twitch when he saw this scene. He said in a low voice, "We actually encountered a school of flying swordfish? Why is our luck so bad?" Chapter 4007. There was no time to hesitate. Hong Zhong's imposing manner suddenly rose to an unprecedented intensity. Lin Yi and the other 2 assistants beside him were oppressed by this imposing manner. They almost fell off the flying spirit beast. Fortunately, they reacted quickly enough. Hong Zhong pressed down with one hand, and suddenly, a golden light shone for tens of thousands of feet. A giant hand phantom appeared out of thin air, and it directly met the dozens of water arrows, and actually forcefully suppressed all of them. This strength really made Lin Yi dumbfounded. He could clearly feel that the power of those water arrows was comparable to his true chi bombs. Dozens of water arrows were dozens of true chi bombs. What kind of terrifying power would they have when added together? Unexpectedly, they were suppressed by Hong Zhong in one move. Usually, Hong Zhong looked like a quiet and honest elder. He didn't expect that when he made a move, he would be so domineering and shocking. Sure enough, a real person doesn't show his true colors. Hong Zhong was really a person who hid his true colors. Suppressing dozens of water arrows with one palm, under the incomparable aura, even the flying spirit beast under his feet was almost hit. It struggled for a moment before it finally managed to stabilize its body. However, before the first wave subsided, another wave arose. Just as this wave of flying swordfish's attack was settled, a strange sound suddenly rang out in the air. At first, it sounded like a woman singing, but at second, it sounded like the ancient Buddhist dhyana language. It concealed profound meaning, causing people to feel an instinctive shudder from the depths of their souls, and then become absent-minded. Divine Sense Attack. Lin Yi's figure instantly trembled. Although his strength was far from the point of divine sense attack and defense, he already had some understanding of it. Even if he didn't react, the ghost thing would inevitably remind him. This time, it was the ghost thing who took the initiative to block it for him. Be careful. This is the siren's song that destroys people's divine sense. Hong Zhong hurriedly warned. Sirens were one of the most mysterious and powerful sea beasts known to man. They were not very large in size. Their size was not big, and they were far less fierce than ordinary sea beasts. They also didn't have any substantial destructive power. However, they had an extremely troublesome racial talent, which was to destroy divine sense. This talent was so terrible that even a super expert like Hong Zhong had a headache. Although he could protect himself with his strength, it would be very difficult for him to protect these people who were far weaker than him at the same time. What's more, he had just suppressed dozens of deadly water arrows with one palm. At this moment, Hong Zhong was running out of energy. The coordination between the siren and the water swordfish. It was enough to be fatal to anyone. The siren song's sudden attack was different from ordinary attacks. This kind of divine sense attack could be said to be impossible to guard against. Even though Hong Zhong had used all his strength to defend himself, he was still unable to protect Lin Yi and the others. The two assistants, who were slightly weaker, were stunned almost instantly. Their eyes became empty and dark, which was a sign that the siren's song had destroyed their divine sense. Oh no! Hong Zhong's heart skipped a beat. The siren's song had a destructive effect on one's spiritual sense. Once hit, there was no way out. Only a master like Zhang Liju would be able to do something about it. It was obviously over. This was indeed the case. After the two deputies were hit, their spiritual consciousness was destroyed, and they directly became vegetative. They immediately fell from the back of the flying spirit beast. Hong Zhong didn't reach out to save them. 1. He really didn't have the strength to save them. 2. Even if he did, it would be useless. So far, there had never been a precedent of someone surviving after their spiritual consciousness was destroyed by the siren's song. However, what surprised Hong Zhong was that Lin Yi, who was weaker than the two deputies, didn't follow the tragic footsteps of the two. Instead, he looked calm and unmoved, as if he wasn't affected at all. Hong Zhong couldn't help but be surprised. His opinion of Lin Yi rose a notch. Although he wanted to block the siren's song for Lin Yi, the extent of what he could do was very limited. Lin Yi didn't receive any more care than the two deputies. At this moment, he was unharmed. It was really strange. What he didn't know was that Lin Yi's spiritual consciousness was stronger than most people's, and he had a master who could regenerate his spirit. This damn thing could be considered a master in the field of spiritual consciousness. This level of spiritual consciousness attack was nothing to him. However, before Hong Zhong could finish his thought, the flying spirit beast under his feet suddenly trembled, and it started to wobble. It looked like it was going to fall at any moment. Hong Zhong and Lin Yi's expressions changed at the same time. This was the vast ocean, and there was no place to land. There were countless ferocious sea beasts lurking. If they fell, even with Hong Zhong's strength, they would definitely die, let alone Lin Yi, who was only at the intermediate phase of the Foundation establishment stage. They're not even letting the flying spirit beasts go, they're trying to kill us. At this critical moment, Hong Zhong gritted his teeth. With the resolve to fight to the death, he used all his spiritual consciousness to help the flying spirit beast resist the threat of the siren's song. Seeing this, Lin Yi secretly signaled to the ghost. If it really didn't work, he could only ask the ghost to save them. After all, they were all on the same boat. If the flying spirit beast died, everyone would die. Of course, this was a last resort. Unless it was absolutely necessary, Lin Yi would not dare to expose the ghost's existence in front of Hong Zhong. This secret was very important, and they weren't that familiar with each other yet. Fortunately, after Hong Zhong used all his strength, the flying spirit beast struggled for a while and finally stabilized, allowing Lin Yi to breathe a sigh of relief. He originally thought that he'd finally escaped calamity, yet he never expected that right at this moment, another wave of water arrows shot over violently from below, and it forced Hong Zhong to have no choice but to hastily use his hands to suppress them once more. But this time, it wasn't as straightforward as before. Although Hong Zhong's shocking strength successfully suppressed most of the water arrows, there was a fish that slipped through the net. A water arrow whistled directly towards the flying spirit beast's wing. At this time, it was already too late for Hong Zhong to react. Once the flying spirit beast's wing was injured, it would be impossible for it to fly out of the vast ocean. There was no village ahead or shop behind, and it could only die here. Bang! At the last moment when the flying spirit beast was about to be hit, a powerful palm of vital chi suddenly hit the water arrow. It was from Lin Yi's hand, the 23rd style of the frenzied fire 8 trigrams palm. Beautiful! Seeing this, Hong Zhong's eyes suddenly lit up. This move of Lin Yi's did not directly suppress the water arrow, but it successfully changed the direction of the water arrow, causing it to slightly miss the flying spirit beast's wing. Chapter 4008. Watching the only 2 boxes fall into the sea, Hong Zhong was speechless for a long time, but there was nothing he could do about it. He was still trying his best to resist the siren's song, and he couldn't be distracted at all. If he rashly ordered the flying spirit beast to descend in order to chase after the 2 boxes, it would be suicide. Don't forget, there was still the deadly school of water swordfish below. Although Lin Yi could instantly store the 2 boxes of goods into the space of the jade pendant, this was his biggest secret, and he didn't intend to directly expose it. He didn't intend to tell Hong Zhong about the jade pendant for the time being. After a while, the storm finally passed, the school of water swordfish gave up the chase, and the siren that came out of nowhere finally disappeared. The sudden crisis finally came to an end. Looking at the empty scene behind them, Hong Zhong and Lin Yi didn't have the slightest expression of happiness, and they were silent. He hadn't even seen the shadow of the far north island, and his 2 assistants and 2 boxes of auction items were all gone just like that. He had died before he could succeed. This trip hadn't even begun, and he had already hit a head and a face full of dirt. After a long time, Hong Zhong regained his calm expression, and said in a deep voice, "Young hero Lin, this old man has implicated you this time, I'm really sorry." "What are you talking about, shopkeeper Hong? I'm already indebted to you for coming all the way here. How can you say that you've dragged me down? Accidents are inevitable." "Shopkeeper Hong, you're exaggerating," Lin Yi quickly said. Hong Zhong shook his head. "It's not an accident, this time's incident was definitely premeditated, and this old man can almost conclude that it was shopkeeper Hao and the others who did it." "Why do you say so? They just left a step earlier, this encounter of ours, it's not necessarily an accident, right?" Although Lin Yi guessed so in his heart, he still asked. "Young hero Lin, you don't know. The school of water swordfish and the sea demons were both rare sea beasts, and they were incompatible with each other. There was absolutely no border between their territories, and under normal circumstances, it would be hard to bump into each other even if one traveled dozens of times. Moreover, both of them met at the same time. There is only one explanation for this situation. Someone specifically used something to lure them here," Hong Zhong said firmly. The road was bumpy, and after 2 hours, Lin Yi and Hong Zhong finally arrived at the northernmost island. Along the way, Lin Yi truly experienced the dangers of the boundless sea. Even though they had already followed the theoretically safest route on the map, they still encountered no less than 3 attacks in 4 hours. One of them was from the sky, and the other 2 were from the sea. With Lin Yi's eyesight, he could tell that each of these 3 attacks was fatal. At the very least, It would not be a problem for it to instantly kill the flying spirit beast below it. It was just that Hong Zhong managed to suppress it in time every time, allowing it to avert danger. It could be seen that it was just as Hong Zhong had said. Although the sea was extremely dangerous, as long as there was a reliable expert holding the fort, it was enough to guarantee one's safety. Alighting from the back of the aerial spirit beast, Zhang Xian looked at the sight before him. Lin Yi couldn't help but take a deep breath. The northernmost island wasn't big, but there was a magnificent and dazzling palace in the center. Shrouded in the 7-colored auspicious clouds, it was faintly discernible, dreamlike, and illusory, as if it was a paradise on earth. A mirage. Lin Yi raised his eyebrows. To be honest, he was quite surprised to see the legendary 7-colored auspicious clouds in such a place. Hong Zhong chuckled and said, "This is the symbol of the northernmost island. Because of the climate, this place is shrouded in clouds all year round." Later, after it was developed into a gold-squandering den, it was artificially transformed into 7-colored clouds. You can't see such a rare sight anywhere else. Lin Yi nodded. At least from the external appearance, the reputation of the northernmost island was well-deserved. In addition to the magnificent palace, the security of the northernmost island was also extremely tight. There were 3 layers of guards inside and outside, and all of them wore black armor. Each of them had the strength of at least the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm, and the leader's rank was even higher. Even during Shanghai Laner's birthday banquet a while ago, the guards were slightly inferior compared to this place. "Let's go," Hong Zhong said and led the way to the palace. Because they were old acquaintances, the guards didn't come over to interrogate them and directly let them pass. However, Lin Yi, who was following behind Hong Zhong, could still feel the countless gazes on him. If he showed the slightest hint of unusualness, he'd probably be instantly arrested by the guards. The pressure they gave off was not any weaker than the enforcers at all. Entering the palace, it could be said to be a completely different world inside. There were pavilions and waterside pavilions, birdsong, and the fragrance of flowers. It was completely different from the magnificent layout shown outside, but this difference would not make people feel uncomfortable at all. Instead, they felt that the style and grade were a level higher than that of ordinary palaces. Lin Yi paid a little attention and found that these pavilions and waterside pavilions, in addition to the quiet and elegant appearance that was pleasing to the eye, faintly contained some kind of profound array. He couldn't help but secretly sigh. The person who designed this palace was definitely a talent. Following behind Hong Zhong, Xianxia passed through a few pavilions before his eyes lit up and he arrived at a spacious area. The surroundings were surrounded by a lake, and at the center was an enormous pavilion that was simple yet didn't lose its grand atmosphere. The pavilion was bustling with activity, and there was a hubbub of voices. Surprisingly, there were already a few dozen people seated there, and Manager Hao, whom Xianxia had just met, was surprisingly amongst them. "This is the auction site?" Lin Yi asked. This leisurely scene was like an outing, and it was a little different from the solemn auction he knew. Yes, in the past, the auction was always held in this pavilion, and this time should be no exception. However, there weren't so many people in the past. Why are they even here? Hong Zhong frowned, especially after seeing the identity of the people sitting there. He couldn't help but frown even more. Them. Following Hong Zhong's gaze, Lin Yi found that although these people were sitting together and talking loudly, they were also divided into several circles. The largest circle had 20 to 30 people. They were shopkeeper Hao and the other people who set off from the North Island at the same time as Lin Yi had seen before. In addition, there were several other small circles. Although the number of people was smaller, their aura was enough to compete with these people. Among them, there were only 5 or 6 people, but each of them exuded an extremely fierce and dangerous aura, like a fierce beast choosing its prey. Even if the people around them were all experts, they still instinctively felt a chill run down their spines. Hee, even the Spirit Beast clan of the South Island has sent people here. This North Island auction is a bit interesting. The ghost's voice suddenly sounded in Lin Yi's mind. Chapter 4009. In addition to this small circle, there was another small circle that also surprised him. There were only 5 or 6 people, and many of them were strong with unfathomable strength. But these people had one thing in common: they were all women. As far as Lin Yi knew, in addition to Central Island, only West Island was a gathering place for female cultivators. In the other 3 islands, unless there were special cases like Shangguan Laner, female cultivators were rarely seen. So the origin of these people was obvious. Not to mention other people, Lin Yi could now recognize that the spirit beasts of South Island, the female cultivators of West Island, and shopkeeper Hao and the others. This so-called North Island auction had gathered more than 3 island masters, and among the others, there might even be masters from East Island. This wasn't quite the same as what he'd heard from Hong Zhong. The North Island auction was held once every 6 months, and normally only the forces of the North Island would participate. The forces of the other islands wouldn't be invited, and they wouldn't participate in the auction. But this time it was obviously different. In addition to the abnormality that had been discovered on the way before, even Lin Yi, a layman, could clearly conclude that Hong Zhong and the Hong's Chamber of Commerce behind him were obviously cheated. What Lin Yi could see, Hong Zhong naturally knew. Even an old man like him, who was used to all kinds of storms, couldn't help but look gloomy. At this time, a man in white suddenly got up from the pavilion. He gracefully and lightly swept across the lake and appeared in front of Lin Yi and others. He smiled at Hong Zhong and said, "Shopkeeper Hong, how have you been? I've been waiting for you for a long time." Hong Zhong cupped his hands and said, "Housekeeper Song, how have you been? May I ask, is this auction different from the past?" Hearing this, the man who was addressed as Housekeeper Song smiled playfully and said, "Shopkeeper Hong, your question is a little biased. Even though the auction will be held in the extreme North Island, we are only the host and provide the venue. We also send some people to assist you. Everything is decided by you and has never gone through our hands. You should know better than me whether there is any difference." Hong Zhong took a deep look at him and nodded. "That's true. Forgive me for being presumptuous. Then can you tell me when this auction will start, Housekeeper Song?" "I know this. This auction will officially start 3 days later." Housekeeper Song smiled faintly. 3 days later? Hong Zhong's eyes suddenly narrowed. Lin Yi beside him was also surprised to hear this. In the past, the North Island auction was always finished in 1 day. If there was no accident, they could return on the same day. But this time, it was arranged 3 days later. There were indeed many tricks. Housekeeper Song raised his head and glanced at the people in the pavilion in the distance, then looked at Hong Zhong with a playful expression. "For the sake of our many years of friendship, there's no harm in reminding you that this auction is no longer the North Island auction, but the 4 Islands auction fair. In the next 3 days, all the important figures of the other 3 islands will arrive, and even people from the Middle Island will come. For your Chamber of Commerce, this is a rare grand occasion. Take care." After saying this, Housekeeper Song left lightly, leaving Hong Zhong alone in shock and speechless for a long time. "Shopkeeper Hong, if there is anything you need help with, I'm willing to do my best." Lin Yi took the initiative to say. From a simple North Island auction to a 4 Islands auction fair, the style and level of the auction was greatly improved. At the same time, Hong Zhong, who was kept in the dark from the beginning to the end, was ruthlessly slandered. No wonder the other Chamber of Commerce forces brought a lot of goods. If it was just an ordinary North Island auction, it would not be able to consume them at all. But the 4 Islands auction fair was different. All the forces of the 4 islands would send people over. This was a rare event. No matter how many goods they had, they could be auctioned. For many Chamber of Commerce, this was not only an opportunity to make a fortune, but also an excellent opportunity to enhance their influence. The performance of this 4 Islands auction could even affect the ranking of the major Chamber of Commerce in the Merchant Union. This was a key ranking related to the distribution of the cake. The strong preyed on the weak. This law of nature was vividly reflected in the business world, especially in the Merchant Union, where the competition was extremely fierce. The difference between the top and the bottom was completely different. With a snowball effect, even if there was only a difference of 1 rank, it was not uncommon for the one in front to swallow up the one in behind. This time, the other Chamber of Commerce forces came prepared. Only Hong Zhong and the Hong Chamber of Commerce knew nothing about it. In addition, they were attacked halfway and lost all their goods. It was obvious that they had been targeted by these people. It was obvious that these people were plotting against them. Even if the Hong Chamber of Commerce was a big tree with deep roots, don't forget that the Chamber of Commerce that could deal with them was not weak. If this 4 Islands auction fair was disgraced, it might become their Waterloo afterward. That would be a big scam. Thank you, young hero Lin, for your kindness. Your 13 top-grade Foundation Establishment bottleneck breaking pills are already timely help. As for the other things, I will find a way to solve them. Hong Zhong smiled, regaining his usual calmness. Because Lin Yi's 13 top-grade foundation establishment bottleneck breaking pills were added at the last minute before the departure, they were not packed together with the other goods. Instead, Hong Zhong kept them with him, which was a blessing in disguise. In addition, even if the 2 boxes of auction items were lost, as long as they reacted in time, there was still a way to replenish them before the auction, so there was no need to worry too much. After saying that, Hong Zhong did not go to the pavilion to exchange greetings with those so-called old acquaintances. Instead, he directly took Lin Yi to the room, while he himself did not stop. He immediately used the messenger eagle to inform the headquarters of the Hong Chamber of Commerce on Middle Island and the branches on other islands about what he had just learned. Although there was no teleportation array on the extreme North Island, there was one on the North Island. Moreover, the branch on the North Island had a special fast way to contact the headquarters of the Hong Chamber of Commerce. As long as the messenger eagle was sent back to the branch on the North Island, and the news was sent back through the branch on the North Island, they would get a response within a day. This time, the Hong Chamber of Commerce did not receive any news about this 4 islands auction fair, nor did they make any preparations in advance. Fortunately, there were still 3 days. If they reacted in time, there was still a way to remedy the situation. Chapter 40:10. These pavilions were not only beautiful and refreshing, but they were also a combination of different types of entertainment. In just an hour, Lin Yi had already passed a couple of casinos and casinos. These were things that normal people loved, but to strong practitioners, it was a rare pastime. Lin Yi had seen such places before. Not to mention that he was not interested in these things at all. Even if he had such an idea, he would not rashly spend money in a place he was not familiar with. Otherwise, he would be cheated. In addition to the entertainment venues in the far North Island, Lin Yi also saw many merchants who were exhibiting their treasures in various pavilions. As Steward Song said, this was the 4 Islands auction fair, and the final auction was set in 3 days. These 3 days were the time for the chambers of commerce to display their treasures, to accumulate popularity in advance and attract as many potential buyers as possible, so that they could get as high a price as possible in the auction 3 days later. This was the significance of exhibiting treasures. Before the auction began, the smoke of gunpowder had already spread. However, for the Hong Chamber of Commerce who knew nothing about it beforehand, the precious 3 days would inevitably be wasted. Even if Hong Zhong could take remedial measures in time, it would take at least 2 or 3 days to transport the goods from the headquarters in Middle Island. It was impossible for him to make it in time. Of course, these things had nothing to do with Lin Yi for the time being. Even if he wanted to help Hong Zhong, he was basically powerless. The only thing he could do now was to find his target auction item. Of the 7 materials listed by the King of Junk, except for the mysterious water droplet, which had been bought from the Hong Chamber of Commerce, he had to find a way to collect the remaining 6 materials in this auction. If it was just an ordinary North Island auction in the past, there might be some missing materials, but this time the momentum was so great that as long as he was determined to find them, he would have a great chance to collect all of them. As expected, after walking around, Lin Yi had already found 4 of the materials. This was based on the fact that the exhibition had just begun, and many merchants had not taken out all the auction items yet. If nothing went wrong, he should be able to find the remaining 2 materials in the next 2 days. The night passed peacefully, and Lin Yi went to look for Hong Zhong the next morning. The usually calm and collected elder's face was surprisingly pale, and his eyes were bloodshot. It seemed like he hadn't slept the entire night, and had been working himself to the bone. Manager Hong, the situation is not optimistic? Lin Yi asked. He came here with Hong Zhong, so they were on the same boat. Coupled with their past friendship, he would not hesitate to help Hong Zhong if he needed any help. Young Master Lin, good morning. Hong Zhong forced a smile on his face. He did not hide anything from Lin Yi and admitted, "That's right. I just received a reply this morning. Our Hong merchant group has been buried in a trap set up by others." How could it be? Lin Yi couldn't help but be slightly stunned, and asked doubtfully, "The Hong Chamber of Commerce is a big business. Even if others want to join forces to target us, it won't be so easy, right?" Hong Zhong shook his head and sighed. That being said, we have now become the target of public criticism, and the other party has been planning for a long time. Not only did they deliberately block the news of the auction from us, but even our material reserves were consumed and purchased in advance. Including the headquarters in Middle Island and the other 3 branches, there was a serious shortage of goods that could be auctioned at the same time. In the past few days, they were bought in batches, which was really unexpected. Lin Yi was stunned when he heard this. Even a layman like him knew that a business giant like the Hong Chamber of Commerce must attach great importance to the stock of goods. Even if there was a shortage in a short period of time, there must be channels to quickly replenish it. To cause a serious shortage in all the headquarters in Middle Island and the 4 branches, and to be stuck at this critical time, the difficulty could be imagined. If that's the case, then it's true that they've been planning this for a long time. But the reason they're going through all this trouble is probably not just this 4 Isles Auction Expo. I'm afraid they're planning something even more troublesome later on. That's true. The other party is coming with great ferocity this time, and the auction is just the beginning. If we appear to be too weak and are caught by others, our Hong Chamber of Commerce might really face an unprecedented crisis, Hong Zhong said worriedly. The other party was an alliance of many forces. In the beginning, many of them might only be in a wait-and-see state. However, if the Hong Chamber of Commerce appeared too weak and was thought to be profitable, they would finally swarm over, and the end would not be far. On the contrary, in this 4 Islands auction fair, if the Hong Chamber of Commerce had a way to safely get through the crisis and show a deep foundation, then these forces would automatically retreat, and the danger would be easily solved. Manager Hong, if we can prepare enough auction items in a short period of time, will we be able to deal with this crisis? Lin Yi suddenly asked thoughtfully. Hong Zhong nodded and said, "That's right. But for an auction of this level, the ordinary level of goods are not good enough. Even if they are shipped over, it will only make people laugh. And for goods that are good enough, there is no way to replenish them in a short period of time. It really makes people feel helpless. Then, are elixirs like the best grade foundation establishment bottleneck-breaking elixir good enough?" Lin Yi asked again. Of course. Experts in the foundation establishment stage are the foundation and backbone of every force. For them, the best grade foundation establishment bottleneck-breaking elixir is a treasure that can only be found by luck. It is even more sought after than some divine weapons. For any force, it can be regarded as a strategic level elixir, an existence that has a price but no market. Hong Zhong nodded affirmatively. Hearing this, the corner of Lin Yi's mouth slightly curved up. If that's the case, then I should be able to help a little. Since they are all holding the 4 Islands auction fair, how about we hold a best grade elixir fair? Best grade elixir fair. Hong Zhong's eyes lit up and he quickly said, "Could it be that young hero Lin still has a lot of best grade elixirs on hand?" No. Lin Yi shook his head decisively. 2 best grade foundation establishment bottleneck-breaking elixirs were given to Shangguan Laner, and the 13 best grade foundation establishment bottleneck-breaking elixirs were all sold to Hong Zhong. He did not have any elixirs left. Then, where did this best grade elixir fair come from? Hong Zhong could not help but be a little disappointed. Chapter 40:11. Even someone like Hong Zhong, who was used to all kinds of situations, was stunned by these domineering words. After a while he said, "Master Lin, we only have 3 days left. Are you really confident that you can concoct a large amount of elixirs, and they have to be of the highest quality?" One couldn't blame Hong Zhong for being puzzled. Anyone with a bit of common sense would be puzzled. Everyone knew that concocting elixirs was a very time-consuming and laborious. A weaker elixir refiner might not even be able to concoct a single elixir in 3 days. As for the highest quality elixirs, unless it was an elixir god like Zhang Liju, even a slightly weaker elixir refiner couldn't guarantee it. After so many interactions, Hong Zhong was 100% sure that Lin Yi could concoct elixirs of the highest quality, but to say that he could concoct a large amount in 3 days was too much. "Let's try it. We don't have any other ideas anyway. Why don't we give it a try?" Lin Yi smiled faintly. Since Lin Yi said so, Hong Zhong didn't have any other ideas. He just nodded. "If that's the case, then I'll have to trouble you, Master Lin. I'll thank you after this is done. I'll go prepare now." Hong Zhong immediately went to prepare the ingredients, and Lin Yi, on the other hand, asked for a special guest room and closed his eyes to rest. This time, the reason why he offered to help was because he had thought it through. 1. He could return Hong Zhong's previous favors and deepen their relationship. 2. If he showed his great value in front of Hong Zhong, it would be easier for them to work together in the future. An hour later, Hong Zhong brought a few people with him and moved a few sacks of elixirs. In order to save time, he bought these from Steward Song. These elixirs weren't considered important resources here, and they could be bought with spirit jade. The elixirs that could be concocted with these ingredients were similar to the foundation-breaking elixirs, which were commonly used by foundation establishment practitioners. Since Lin Yi could concoct the foundation-breaking elixir, naturally, he could concoct these elixirs as well. He even gave Lin Yi a few recipes as well. It was an early reward for Lin Yi. After all, to an elixir refiner, every recipe was extremely valuable. After roughly sorting out the ingredients, Lin Yi asked Hong Zhong to find someone to borrow a pill refining room and entered into a state of isolation. Time was limited, and it was time for the Shenlong's cauldron to shine. Lin Yi had never come into contact with these elixirs before. After all, there weren't any foundation establishment practitioners in the mortal world. There were no elixirs to speak of. However, this didn't stop him from concocting. Even if it was a pill he'd never seen before, elixir making was still the same. Don't forget that he still had Zhang Liju's notes in the common world. Even if he used it as a reference when making foundation-building elixirs, it'd still be very useful. What was worth mentioning was that when he was studying these notes, Lin Yi had received quite a bit of inspiration. It wasn't related to elixir concocting, but it was a killer move that could completely surpass the super chi bomb. However, it was still in the testing phase, and he hadn't fully mastered it yet. Other than the help of Zhang Liju's notes, the Shenlong cauldron, under Han Jingjing's genius modifications, had become a complete semi-automatic elixir concoction artifact. This semi-automatic only required Lin Yi to manually inject his qi into the cauldron, and everything else was done by the cauldron itself. Even elixirs that it had never come into contact with before were no problem. As long as the recipe was inputted, the cauldron would automatically analyze the elixir concoction curve, and the rest couldn't be any simpler. Following the instructions of the cauldron, he would put in the ingredients and carefully inject his qi, waiting for the elixir to come out. 2 hours later, the first batch of elixirs came out, and the results were just as Lin Yi had expected. As an experiment, he put in 5 portions of ingredients at once, and this time, 3 pills came out successfully, while the other 2 were useless. The first experiment had a 60% success rate, and for any elixir refiner, this was already an exaggeration. The Shenlong cauldron's performance after that was the true proof of its legendary abilities. The same elixir, the second batch had a success rate of 80%, and from the third batch onwards, the success rate had stabilized at 90% and above, even approaching 100%. Each time, the cauldron would automatically correct the pill concoction curve, and step by step, it would increase the already shocking success rate to an unparalleled level. The first 2 batches still had some failures, but after that, the failures pretty much disappeared. This was the true strength of the Shenlong cauldron. For 2 whole days, Lin Yi didn't go out and had been refining elixirs with all his might. Hong Zhong didn't know what was going on inside, but even if Lin Yi couldn't refine enough top-grade elixirs, his gratitude to Lin Yi didn't diminish in the slightest. The only 2 boxes of auction items were dropped halfway, and the Central Island and the other 3 islands were short of supplies at the same time. The sudden 4 Islands Auction Expo suddenly pushed Hong Zhong to the heart of the struggle. According to this development, the Hong Chamber of Commerce would inevitably fall into disgrace. Not to mention what more dangerous and fatal actions those people would take in the future. At least for Hong Zhong, his career as a sole shopkeeper would come to an end. In order to intimidate people and to give everyone an explanation, the Hong Chamber of Commerce would definitely push him out as the scapegoat for this incident. They would blame him for the root cause of this failure. This was a logical thing to happen, and no one could change it. Therefore, forced by the situation, Hong Zhong, who was originally omnipotent, was now left with one last life-saving straw because he was being targeted by others, and that was Lin Yi. If Lin Yi succeeded, then he would be able to escape. If not, then there was nothing he could do, and he could only resign himself to fate. That was the truth. In the 2 days that Lin Yi was concentrating on refining elixirs, Hong Zhong and the other potential opponents didn't just sit around and do nothing. They gathered together and found Steward Song. Tomorrow is the auction. Looking at the time, if Hong Zhong has a way to transfer supplies from other places, he should be able to arrive today. Although this possibility is not high, we can't be careless. The first person to speak was Hong Zhong's old acquaintance, shopkeeper Hao. Chapter 40:12. Hearing this, everyone smiled knowingly. The so-called Anti-Flood Alliance was formed by the alliance of the 5 largest merchant guilds in the Merchant Union. Each of them was ranked in the top 10, and among them, the merchant guilds behind shopkeeper Hao and the yellow-haired man were the strongest. Behind shopkeeper Hao was the wealthy Metropolis Association, which was ranked third in the merchant union. The yellow-haired man's name was Wang Tong, and behind him was the All-Access Assembly, which was ranked fourth in the merchant union. In addition to the other three top 10 merchant unions, with such a luxurious lineup, even the Hong Merchant Union, which was ranked second in the merchant union, would not be able to handle it. As for the first, it was the Five Elements Pharmacy, a subsidiary of the Pill Hall. It was founded by the pill god Zhang Liju. Naturally, no one dared to do anything to it. This Four Islands Auction Expo was only the first battle of the Anti-Flood Alliance. There would be a series of actions after that, and they only had one goal: to divide and devour the giant that was Hong Merchant Union. Seeing that no one took it seriously, Shopkeeper Hao cautiously reminded everyone, this is the first battle of our Anti-Flood Alliance, and it is also a crucial battle. The higher-ups of each family are watching this matter closely, and the success or failure of this battle is related to everyone's future, so there is no room for error. Although Hong Zhong has become a turtle in a jar, this old man thinks that it is better to be careful, lest we fail miserably. That's right, Shopkeeper Hao, you're right. Hong Zhong has been in the North Island for decades, and he's seen his fair share of storms and waves. Who knows, he might have some sort of emergency plan that no one knows about, and it'll be hard to defend against it. One mistake and we'll fail. Young Master Wang, it's better to be careful, the others agreed. Wang Tong was the young master of the All Tong gathering, and he was already very pleased with himself, but after hearing the words of Shopkeeper Hao and the others, he frowned. It's said that the older one gets, the more timid they become. This saying is absolutely true. I've long since guessed that Hong Zhong would be helpless. However, since you all insist on being careful, I'll let you do as you please. However, I'll have to trouble myself to inquire about something. Since he has already fallen to such a state, how are you all going to guard against him? Wang Tong asked with disdain. Shopkeeper Hao chuckled in an experienced and prudent manner. Young Shopkeeper Wang, don't worry. This old man has a way to ensure that nothing goes wrong. However, this matter will require Housekeeper Song's assistance. A voice came from outside. You need me to do it? Is there anything I can help you with? Seeing Housekeeper Song step into the room as if no one else was present, everyone present stood up in succession to greet him. In this northernmost island, Housekeeper Song had full authority over everything. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that he was the master of this place. Shopkeeper Hao cupped his hands and smiled. A straightforward person doesn't beat around the bush. We naturally can't hide our affairs from Housekeeper Song, so I'll be frank with you this time. If nothing unexpected happens, the Hong Merchant Group will most likely think of a way to send a batch of supplies over today as emergency supplies for tomorrow's auction. This is a rare opportunity to crush the Hong Merchant Group. We definitely won't allow them to escape from death, so we'd like to ask Housekeeper Song for a small favor. You want me to stop them halfway? Manager Song smiled spuriously as he swept his gaze over everyone and spoke with a profound meaning. That's right. On this northernmost island, only your northern garrison has the strength and the guts to do this. It's just a piece of cake for you to stop them. We are willing to pay you 10,000 spiritual jades as compensation. What do you think? Shopkeeper Hao suggested respectfully. 10,000 spiritual jades? Housekeeper Song raised his eyebrows and grinned. Shopkeeper Hao, you've said it yourself. I'm the only one who has the strength and the guts to do this. Once we do this, it means we're going to turn against the Hong Merchant Group. Am I that stupid in your eyes that I would openly offend the Hong Merchant Group for some spiritual jades? Shopkeeper Hao said calmly. You don't have to worry, Housekeeper Song. As long as our Anti-Flood Alliance is here, the Hong Merchant Group will soon cease to exist. Moreover, even if they know it's your northern garrison who did this, their number one enemy is us. They won't spare their energy to deal with you. What do you think? What's more, you don't need to waste your manpower this time. All you need to do is send an order for the northern garrison to make some extra money. You can easily get 10,000 spiritual jades. Why not? Housekeeper Song couldn't help but laugh when he heard this, as expected of an experienced businessman. Shopkeeper Hao's words do make some sense. However, you seem to have forgotten something. I, Song, and Shopkeeper Hong Zhonghong have been friends for decades. Even if we aren't brothers, we are at least old friends, so... Everyone's heart skipped a beat. So... Housekeeper Song smiled. So don't you think we need to add more spiritual jades to hit an old friend when he's down? Huh. I see. Everyone couldn't help but feel that it was ridiculous. Because it was an old friend, not only did they have to accept the job, but they also had to pay more. Housekeeper Song's logic was really invincible. Well. 15,000 spiritual jades. Are you satisfied, Housekeeper Song? Shopkeeper Hao reacted and said quickly. The 5 merchant unions were among the top 10 merchant unions. This amount of spiritual jades was nothing to them. Then you can wait here for my news. Housekeeper Song nodded in satisfaction. He immediately turned around and left. Making 15,000 spiritual jades with a simple order was like a pie falling from the sky. It would be a waste not to take it. As for the fact that he was Hong Zhonghong's old friend, although it was not a lie, how could he reject someone who was giving him spiritual jades for free? A whole day passed in a flash. Shopkeeper Hao, Wang Tong, and the others had been waiting in the living room. However, the news they expected never came. It wasn't until the sun had set that they saw Housekeeper Song slowly walk in. He had a playful smile on his face. The northern garrison has called off their troops. The extreme North Island has been sealed. It seems that the Hong Merchant Union won't be sending any more supplies here before tomorrow's auction. You can pay the promised 15,000 spiritual jades now. Hearing that, everyone let out a sigh of relief. The possibility that Hong Zhonghong was at his wits' end was theoretically the highest. Naturally, it was within their expectations. The 15,000 spiritual jades were just to buy some peace of mind and eliminate the last possibility. Chapter 40:13. Shopkeeper Hao and the others looked at each other and didn't say anything. They were all experienced and prudent businessmen. Spending this amount of spiritual jades could crush Hong Zhong's last hope of making a comeback. It wasn't a loss at all. After taking the spiritual jades, Steward Song suddenly said with a half-smile, "I've always been kind. I didn't manage to intercept the Hong Chamber of Commerce's goods this time, but I took 15,000 spiritual jades from you for nothing. Although it's reasonable, I still feel bad about it. So, why don't I give you a piece of information?" Everyone had a strange look on their faces. If he really felt bad about it, why did he take the spiritual jade so quickly? What is it? Please tell me, Steward Song. Shopkeeper Hao cupped his hands and asked. Steward Song smiled. You've all been here discussing important matters today, so you haven't paid much attention to what's going on outside. I guess you don't know that the Hong Chamber of Commerce has joined the auction half an hour ago, right? What? Everyone's expression changed. They were all dumbfounded and couldn't say a word for a long time. They had been discussing how to deal with the Hong Chamber of Commerce from the beginning to the end. They had even taken out a large amount of spiritual jades to ask the northern garrison guards for help just for the slightest possibility. They had never thought that Hong Zhong would have the capital to participate in the auction. Participate in the auction? How is it possible for him to take out an auction item now? Shopkeeper Hao and the others couldn't help but exclaim. 2 boxes of goods had fallen into the sea, which also cut off the Hong Chamber of Commerce's supply line. No matter how they thought about it, it was impossible for that to happen. Unless someone had sold Hong Zhong the materials they were going to auction in advance. None of the people present were stupid, and they quickly thought of this possibility. Then their expressions became ferocious and unfriendly. How dare they do such a thing behind our backs? Do they think our anti-flood alliance is nothing? Steward Song couldn't help but laugh. Everyone, you've probably misunderstood. The things that Hong Zhong has brought out for sale this time are quite shocking. It's not something that any Chamber of Commerce would be able to bring out. No one would be stupid enough to sell such a strategic resource to him in private. It can be seen that this old friend of mine has long been prepared and has played a good trick on everyone. Upon hearing this, the faces of Manager Hao, Wang Tong, and the others turned even uglier. Without further ado, they rose to their feet and left the room. They were eager to see what this old man Hong Zhong had to offer. Seeing their expressions, Steward Song cursed in his mind. What a bunch of idiots! Who else would they cheat if not their spiritual jades? The group of people quickly arrived at the pavilion that the Hong Merchant Group had booked for the exhibition. As his assistant had died halfway, Hong Zhong, as the manager, could only personally attend to the event. Even Lin Yi had to help from the side. The pavilion wasn't big, and the items that the Hong Chamber of Commerce took out for exhibition weren't big either. They could barely fill up a row of display racks. However, The items displayed on the row of display racks caused even the experienced and knowledgeable shopkeepers of the large chambers of commerce to stare with their eyes wide open. How is that possible? Wang Tong, who was the most impatient among them, was stunned. More than 100 elixirs? Even the experienced shopkeeper How couldn't help but feel his temples throbbing. His heart almost exploded from the shock. In any auction, supreme-grade elixirs were always the best. It was already good enough to get 3 or 4 of them, let alone 100. It was simply unimaginable, unless they had a pill god like Zhang Liju at home. From the expected emptiness, to suddenly conjuring a full 100 top-grade medicinal pills, this sudden change of events was too shocking and heaven-defying. Yo, we meet again. How have you been these past few days? Does my humble shop's small business catch everyone's attention? Hong Zhong smiled innocently as he enjoyed everyone's deflated expressions while swallowing their eggs. What the hell? Everyone couldn't help but want to vomit blood again. A total of more than 100 top-grade medicinal pills, and he actually said that it was a small business that didn't enter his eyes? Then what were they? After plotting and spending so much effort, not only were they unable to suppress Hong Zhong and the Hong Merchant Group, they had instead caused such an embarrassing and shocking scene. At this moment, the expressions of manager Hao, Wang Tong, and the others were truly so gloomy that water could be seen. Although Hong Zhong was an honest elder, what he said at this time was really infuriating. Lin Yi snickered as he watched from the side. The impact and shock brought about by more than 100 top-grade elixirs was something that even the most experienced and knowledgeable person would not be able to endure. Not to mention this group of people behind the scenes who schemed to bring down the Hong Chamber of Commerce. In fact, not only these people, even the big shots from Middle Island who came late also came to join in the fun. They all looked surprised and whispered to each other, praising the elixirs. In the crowd, a figure in yellow suddenly made Lin Yi's eyes light up. He looked carefully and Lin Yi's mind went blank. He couldn't help but exclaim, Tian Chan? Voice, appearance, speech and mannerisms, no matter which point it was, proved that the woman in the crowd was Tian Chan. However, hearing Lin Yi's exclamation, Tian Chan didn't show any unusual reaction. She just glanced at him indifferently, and her gaze directly passed by Lin Yi. It was as if she didn't recognize Lin Yi at all. Lin Yi was stunned. This person was obviously Tian Chan. There was no way she could be wrong about this. But he wasn't wearing the 1,000 silk mask. How could she not recognize him? When Lin Yi wanted to say something, Tian Chan had already left with the big shots from Middle Island. From beginning to end, she didn't look at Lin Yi again, not even once. He frowned as he watched Tian Chan leave with the others, as if she didn't know him at all. Lin Yi froze. It was impossible for him to be wrong, but Tian Chan's expression from beginning to end didn't show any abnormality. She was completely like a stranger, which was incomprehensible. What's going on? Lin Yi looked at Tian Chan's back and took a deep breath. After coming to Heavenly Island for so long, Tian Chan was the first secular practitioner he had seen other than Kong Ming, Zhong Pingliang, and others. Moreover, she was a woman who had a close relationship with him. Young hero Lin, what's wrong? Is there a problem? Hong Zhong noticed Lin Yi's strangeness and took the initiative to ask. Chapter 4014. Shopkeeper Hong, are those people from Middle Island? Lin Yi asked. That's right, not only are they from Middle Island, but they also have a strong background. Hong Zhong paused. Master Lin, did you notice the 5 colors on their sleeves? That's the symbol of 5 Elements Sect, which is the 5 Elements Pharmacy of Middle Island. 5 Elements Pharmacy? Lin Yi's eyes lit up as he thought about it. Although it's called a pharmacy, it's the #1 super business group in the Merchant Alliance. It's under the jurisdiction of the Hall of Elixirs, and I'm sure you know the person in charge of the Hall of Elixirs, Miracle Dr. Zhang Liju. Hong Zhong said with admiration. After hearing this, Lin Yi was even more stunned. If that was the case, Tian Chan was from the 5 Elements Pharmacy. Didn't that mean that she was Zhang Liju's disciple? She was teleported to Middle Island? From the common world, different people would be teleported to different places. This was a very normal speculation, but Lin Yi always thought that a girl like Tian Chan would be teleported to West Island, where female practitioners gathered. He didn't expect this result. But, even if Tian Chan was teleported to Middle Island and became a member of the 5 Elements Pharmacy, it didn't make sense for them to be strangers, right? What did this mean? Shopkeeper Hong, Do you have any way of finding out where these people live? Lin Yi thought about it and lowered his voice. Lin Yi didn't believe that Tian Chan didn't recognize him. How long had it been? It was completely unrealistic. He had to find a way to figure out the reason. Besides, the relationship between him and Hong Zhong was far from what it was before he came here. They were in the same boat, and he didn't need to be too cautious. He could just ask directly. As expected, although Hong Zhong was a little surprised, he didn't ask too many questions. He replied softly, "I'm not sure about that, but according to the usual practice, the North Island has always arranged for important guests to stay in the core, the Hall of Heroes. These people are from the Five Elements Pharmacy, so they should be staying there." Gathering Hall of Heroes. All right, I'll remember it. Thank you. Lin Yi nodded. He was almost done here, so Lin Yi slipped out. He couldn't wait to find Tian Chan and ask about the situation. Watching Lin Yi leave, Hong Zhong smiled as expected and said to himself, "This young hero Lin seems to have some relationship with the Five Elements Pharmacy. He's really unfathomable." But, in less than 3 days to be able to make hundreds of top-quality elixirs, even in the entire Five Elements Pharmacy, other than the elixir god Zhang Liju, there's probably no one who can beat him. Hong Zhong shook his head and sighed. He did not think too much about it and turned around to deal with shopkeeper Hao, Wang Tong, and the others. This time, he was nearly forced into a corner by these people. He had to take advantage of this opportunity to slap their faces back. As for Lin Yi, everyone had their own secrets. An experienced person like Hong Zhong naturally knew that knowing too much might not be a good thing. The most important thing now was to get Lin Yi on his side and try to pull him to his side. Other than that, everything else was unnecessary. On the other hand, Lin Yi had already made a round in the North Island. After a few turns, he quickly arrived at the entrance of the Hall of Heroes. However, he was stopped by someone. This is an important place for important guests. Unauthorized personnel are not allowed to enter. The person in front of Lin Yi was a guard in black armor. It was the symbol of the North Island, the North Guard. "I have a friend who lives inside, and I just want to talk to him. Can you guys make an exception?" Lin Yi tried to ask. The North Guard responded expressionlessly, "Unless you have a pass or someone comes out to pick you up, please go back. Don't ask for trouble." As they spoke, the North Guard showed an aggressive and fierce aura. It seemed that if something went wrong, they would kill Lin Yi on the spot the next moment. Lin Yi's eyelids twitched. He was only in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm. Each of the North Guard in front of him was stronger than him. If he really fought, he would be courting death. He could only nod and retreat. After that, Lin Yi walked around the Hall of Heroes again and found that there was a sentry every few steps. There was no flaw at all. He had no choice but to give up the idea of waiting for an opportunity to sneak in. Looking at the Hall of Heroes from afar, Lin Yi could only shake his head and sigh. It seemed that if he wanted to meet Tian Chan again, he would have to wait until tomorrow's auction. The next morning, the northernmost island was bustling with noise. Lanterns and streamers were hung up and down. It was a festive scene. If it was just the usual North Island auction fair, which was held once every 6 months, it would not be so rare. However, this time, it was a rare Four Islands auction fair, which might not happen even once in decades. Following the crowd, Lin Yi and Hong Zhong came to the largest pavilion on the northernmost island. This was the ultimate venue of the auction. All the auction items would be competed here. The final winner would be revealed here. Seeing the appearance of Hong Zhong and Zhang Xian, an uproar broke out at the scene. The incident of the Hong Chamber of Commerce suddenly taking out more than 100 top-grade elixirs yesterday evening had already spread throughout the entire northernmost island. Everyone knew about it. The faces of manager Hao, Wang Tong, and the others who had arrived long ago darkened. They had put in so much effort to deal with the Hong Chamber of Commerce this time, but in the end, before the auction even started, their plot had already been foiled. It was neither early nor late. At the last moment of the 3-day exhibition, they suddenly took out more than 100 top-grade elixirs. Even if everyone thought with their toes, they could figure out that they had been fooled by Hong Zhong, the old man. Not only them, but even housekeeper Song, who sold the medicinal herbs to Hong Zhong, was shocked for a long time when he heard the news. Like everyone else, housekeeper Song did not believe that someone could refine so many top-grade elixirs in such a short time. The only reasonable explanation was that Hong Zhong had secretly hidden them long ago, and only took them out at the last moment to slap these people in the face. The previous purchase of medicinal herbs was just a cover-up. This despicable and shameless old man. Wang Tong and the others gnashed their teeth in hatred. It was not easy to find an opportunity to drag the giant Hong's Chamber of Commerce down, but they did not expect it to be like this. All the previous plans were simply a joke. They really felt that they were blind. Chapter 40:15. Of course, it was not hard to understand why the Five Elements Pharmacy did not go all out this time. However, the wealthy families and the Wantong Grand Festival were trying their best to crush the Hong Chamber of Commerce this time. This time, they had definitely made full preparations beforehand. However, even if they added all of them together, the number of top-grade elixirs was only a fraction of what the Hong Chamber of Commerce had. This really made people speechless. Shopkeeper Hong, it seems that not only will the Hong Chamber of Commerce not fail miserably this time, but it will also shine brightly. After making such a great contribution, I believe that after this, your position in the Hong Chamber of Commerce will be promoted. This is really worthy of celebration. Housekeeper Song congratulated Shopkeeper Hong in front of everyone. Not at all. The auction hasn't started yet. Housekeeper Song's words might be overpraising me. Hong Zhong smiled humbly. That being said, any normal person would know that top-grade elixirs were strategic resources that would never be auctioned off. Even if the auction had yet to start, just the fact that there were more than 100 top-grade elixirs that had already appeared was already destined for the Hong Chamber of Commerce to take the lead and become the biggest winner of this Four Islands Auction Expo. There was absolutely no possibility of an accident. In comparison, the other large chambers of commerce such as the wealthy guilds and the all-access gatherings were nothing. Even the number 1 Five Elements Pharmacy could only stand aside this time. They were not on the same level as the Hong Chamber of Commerce at all. Being humble is not a bad thing. But being overly humble is a little pretentious. Never mind, after this is over, I will hold a banquet to welcome you. Let us brothers catch up. Housekeeper Song laughed loudly and turned to walk up to the stage. This time, he would personally be the host of the Four Islands Auction Expo. This Housekeeper Song is really practical. Lin Yi could not help but smile. When Housekeeper Song saw Hong Zhong previously, he was far less enthusiastic. This is not strange at all. It's human nature. Young hero Lin, you still don't know that this guy made a deal with Wang Tong and the others to deal with the Hong Chamber of Commerce yesterday. Although he already knows that we took out 100 top-grade elixirs, this is really a scam. However, in comparison, he has a better relationship with the Hong Chamber of Commerce. It's understandable for businessmen to pursue profits. Hong Zhong was already used to it. He had been to the far north island dozens of times. It was normal for him to bribe a few spies. What the North Garrison guards did yesterday did not escape his eyes. Then he really is a weirdo. Lin Yi suddenly laughed and was speechless. Just as the two of them were talking, there was another commotion in the venue, and the source of the commotion this time was because the group from Middle Island had entered the venue. Tian Chan. Lin Yi's eyes immediately focused on the yellow figure. Just like yesterday, she was still dressed in yellow. If it was said that there was a slight possibility of mistaken identity due to the dark sky yesterday, then this time, Lin Yi was 100% sure that this woman was Tian Chan. Facing Lin Yi's gaze, Tian Chan did not respond at all, just like last night. Although it could be attributed to the fact that there were too many people, Lin Yi believed that she must have seen him, but he did not know why. She was just deliberately ignoring him. At this moment, Lin Yi's eyebrows suddenly twitched slightly, because he saw a very conspicuous red-haired man among the group of people from Middle Island. His expression was frivolous, and he was about to reach out and put his arm around Tian Chan's waist. Lin Yi suddenly could not contain his anger. He had vaguely guessed the reason. He was afraid that this person was the reason why Tian Chan refused to acknowledge him. It had been half a year since he came to Heaven Level Island. It was not a long time, but it was not a short time either. In this completely unfamiliar and cruel world of cultivation, anything could happen. It was understandable that women in the secular world would be with other men in order to find a backer. Murong Zhan, a woman from a village on Heaven Level Island, was already like this, not to mention the people in the secular world. It was not difficult to understand how Kong Ming fawned on her. However, it was possible for others, but for Tian Chan. In Lin Yi's opinion, it was absolutely impossible. The relationship between two people was built on the edge of life and death, so it should not deteriorate so easily. However,
Looking at the scene in front of him, even the usually calm Lin Yi could not suppress the monstrous anger bursting from the bottom of his heart. Young hero Lin, don't be impatient.
Hong Zhong, who was next to him, immediately sensed Lin Yi's unusual behavior and quickly held him down with one hand. He did not know why Lin Yi was suddenly so agitated, but he knew that if Lin Yi lost control on the spot, even he would not be able to protect Lin Yi. With Hong Zhong's strength, it was more than enough to suppress Lin Yi. In addition, Lin Yi had been restraining himself, so the others did not notice anything unusual.
I'm fine. In the blink of an eye, Lin Yi had already calmed down because he had just seen Xianxia avoid the red-haired man without a trace.
This at least meant that Xianxia did not want to be with the red-haired man. As long as Xianxia did not want to be with him, then everything else was just fleeting clouds in Lin Yi's eyes.
It could not disturb his state of mind at all.
It's good that you're fine. Young hero Lin, no matter what you want to do, I will help you. However, you must see the situation clearly, act according to your capabilities, and wait for the right opportunity to act. Hong Zhong comforted him. When Lin Yi heard that, his heart warmed. Originally, the relationship between him and Hong Zhong was purely based on interests. Now, it had gradually developed into a friendship despite the difference in age.
To be able to make a businessman like Hong Zhong say such words, it was clear that his help this time was not in vain.
That red-haired man, do you know who he is, Manager Hong? Lin Yi changed the topic and asked. Hong Zhong took a closer look and replied, I have seen that person a few times when I was at the headquarters of Middle Island. His name is Xianxia, and he is from the Pill Hall. His grandfather seems to be the deputy hall master of the Pill Hall.
His qualifications and connections are extremely deep, and his position in the Pill Hall is extremely high.
Xianxia? In that case, he is also a proper third-generation cultivator. Lin Yi nodded thoughtfully. As the people from Middle Island took their seats, all the forces had arrived. With Stewart Song's loud and clear introduction, this rare Four Islands Auction Expo finally began its final prelude. Generally speaking, at the beginning of any auction, the items that were put up for auction could only be regarded as appetizers. All the good items would definitely be left for the finale. However, this Four Islands Auction Expo was far superior to the previous North Island auctions in terms of standard and grade. Even if it was just the first item that was put up for auction, it was not a small matter. Chapter 4016. It was similar to a marine creature, but vaguely resembled a human. This was the legendary existence of the North Sea, just like mermaids. Looking at this scene, even Lin Yi was stunned. Don't forget, on the way to the extreme North Island, they were just attacked by this legendary sea beast. At that time, they were only attacked by the Song of the Siren, and didn't see the appearance of the sea beast. Now they could make up for it. Sea beasts can be auctioned in this kind of auction? Lin Yi felt a little incredulous. He had heard from the ghost that although the Spirit Beast clan couldn't completely stop human cultivators from hunting spirit beasts, at least in such a formal public place, no one would dare to openly attack spirit beasts. Sea beasts are sea beasts, and spirit beasts are spirit beasts. These are two different things. The Spirit Beast clan has never conquered the sea, and naturally, they won't protect any sea beasts. The ghost said disapprovingly in his mind. Lin Yi was speechless. At first glance, the sea beast cub looked like a human baby, and even its cry was the same. However, he didn't intend to intervene. After all, the spiritual jades at hand were limited, and he still needed to bid for the 6 casting materials listed by the King of Jianghu. He couldn't afford to lose. However, Lin Yi's lack of interest didn't mean that others had the same idea. The Sea Demon clan's heaven-defying racial talent was destined to become a powerful killing machine once they were tamed as spiritual pets. Therefore, there were actually many people who had thoughts about this young sea demon. Immediately, someone raised his paddle and called out a price.
3,100 spiritual jades.
3,200 spiritual jades. For a time, the bidding sounds came one after another. The base price of 3,000 spiritual jades was not a small number for most people, but there were still so many people scrambling for it. The value of the sea beast cub was obvious. However, the next voice made everyone shut up. 6,000 spiritual jades. I heard that if the sea beast cub is killed and stewed, it has a miraculous effect on nourishing and beautifying. It's just right for you, junior sister Xianxia. I'll accept it on your behalf. The person who spoke was the red-haired man from the Middle Island, Xianxia. Hearing this, the people present couldn't help but show reluctance, but there was nothing they could do. From more than 3,000 spiritual jades to 6,000 spiritual jades, the price had almost doubled. None of the people who were qualified to attend this auction were from poor families. However, spirit jades did not fall from the sky for no reason. Everyone had their own plans. It was clearly not worth it to ruin their plans for a mere baby siren. 6,000 spiritual jades. Zhang Tianjie took the sea beast cub without hesitation. However, Tian Chan, whom he was trying to please, didn't say a word. Throughout the auction, Tian Chan, there was not even a slight change in her expression. Zhang Tianjie seemed to be used to this, and didn't find it boring. Tian Chan had always been a cold beauty in front of him, but it didn't matter. He was rich, and today was a rare occasion for him to be in the limelight. He always had a way to win the beauty's smile. For the next few auctions, this Four Islands auction actually became a one-man show for Zhang Tianjie. Every time, others would increase the price by 1 or 200, but when it came to Zhang Tianjie, he would directly double it. He didn't even blink. His grandfather was the deputy hallmaster of the Pill Hall. Things like spiritual jades were abundant in his family, and he couldn't afford to lose them. Unless those super chambers of commerce came forward to compete with him, no one else was his opponent. They were not on the same level. This Shan Pao. Lin Yi was speechless. If this guy wasn't by Tian Chan's side, he wouldn't even bother to look at him, but now he had to pay attention to him. However, immediately after that, Lin Yi found himself in trouble. This Shan Pao, who didn't lack spiritual jades, was simply super annoying at times. A set of 10 pieces of casting equipment, each of which is recognized by the blacksmiths as the best casting material. The rate of suitability can reach more than 80%, and the starting price is 10,000 spiritual jades. After Housekeeper Song finished his introduction, the audience immediately went into a small uproar. This was the first auction item with a starting price of 5-digit spiritual jades. Listening to this introduction, Lin Yi couldn't help but be stunned.
As early as the first day he came to the extreme North Island, he had already searched everywhere and found 4 of the 6 kinds of casting materials that he needed.
Yesterday, he also found the remaining 2. In order to bid for all these materials, he thought that today would be a long battle, but he didn't expect such a sudden change. Many casting materials were combined into a set and auctioned together, and the 6 kinds of casting materials were all in it. Such a change really caught Lin Yi off guard. He completely didn't consider this aspect of the bidding beforehand, and more importantly, this was Zhang Tianjie's special auction. Lin Yi currently had 15,000 spiritual jades on hand. If it was only the 6 materials that were auctioned separately, it would be more than enough. However, if it was a set of 10 pieces, it would be somewhat insufficient. Without further ado, Lin Yi could only bite the bullet and make a preemptive bid, 15,000 spiritual jades. The audience was in an uproar, and the focus of the crowd instantly focused on Lin Yi. They had always thought that Lin Yi was only a small worker in the Hong Merchant Association, but now it was obvious that he wasn't. After all, in such an important occasion, which merchant association would treat it as child's play to let a small worker bid? The crowd was still in an uproar, but there were 3 people in the crowd who were dumbfounded when their gazes landed on Lin Yi. These 3 people were none other than Nan Tianba, Southern Sky Gate, and Wuxia, whom Lin Yi had been wary of. With Nan Tianba's background and status, he naturally had a way to enter the Northern Island auction. However, they were purely here to bid, so they didn't arrive early like Lin Yi and Hong Zhong. They had only arrived at the Northern Island last night, so they didn't know anything about the commotion that had just occurred. Any normal person wouldn't believe that a mere grassroots newcomer like Lin Yi could actually come to such a high-class place. If he hadn't bid, perhaps Nan Tianba and the other 2 wouldn't have noticed his existence until the end of the auction. Why is this brat here? It seems like even if I don't get anything good from this trip, it won't be a wasted trip. Nan Tianba bared his teeth, while Southern Sky Gate and Wuxia both smiled sinisterly. Chapter 40:17. Heh, 15,000 spirit jades as soon as he opens his mouth. This kid is quite arrogant. It seems like he still has a lot of spirit jades on him. Wuxia's eyes lit up. Don't be impatient. Once the auction is over, we'll find a chance to make our move. This time we can't let him escape. If there's a mistake, we won't let it go. The Southern Sky Gate sneered. Even if they couldn't find the star ink stone on Lin Yi, It wouldn't be bad if they could get a large amount of spirit jades. Lin Yi's focus was on Tian the whole time, so he didn't notice Nan Tianba and the other two. After he finished speaking, no one else followed up, suddenly increasing the price by 5,000 spirit jades. Even those who were originally interested had to think it over carefully. However, before Lin Yi could relax, Xianxia had already stood up, 20,000 spirit jades. Lin Yi's heart sank. Then he saw Xianxia glancing at him disdainfully. "Tsh, I don't know where this beggar came from, but he dares to pretend to be rich in front of me. You really are a country bumpkin who hasn't seen the world. The spirit jades that I casually throw away can easily crush you to death." Lin Yi coldly looked at the other party, but there was nothing he could do. The cleverest housewife couldn't cook without rice. He only had 15,000 spirit jades on him. It was impossible for him to win against this mountain cannon. However, if he let this 10-piece forging set pass him by, then his trip to the extreme North Island would be a complete waste. In the future, if he wanted to gather the 6 materials, who knew how much effort he would have to put in? At this moment, Hong Zhong, who was at the side, nodded to Lin Yi. "Young hero Lin, just name your price. No matter how many spirit jades it is, our Hong merchant group will pay for it." This sentence was undoubtedly a timely help. Lin Yi didn't argue with Hong Zhong. After all, he had spared no effort to refine over 100 top-quality pills for him, so he could definitely accept this favor. 30,000 spirit jades. Lin Yi called out the price on the spot. He knew that if he wanted to compete with an idiot like Xianxia in a situation like this, he'd have to overwhelm his opponent with his aura. If it was just a small fight, not only would the opponent not back off, he'd only get more aggressive. From 20,000 to 30,000, this amount was enough to make everyone's eyelids twitch. They all cursed in their hearts. Damn it, another prodigal mountain cannon. This time, even Xianxia was stunned. As the first grandson of the deputy hall master of the Pill Hall, his identity was definitely that of a young master even in Middle Island. He was so rich and powerful that almost no one could defeat him. In this 4 islands auction, apart from them, there were no other important figures from the Middle Island. As for the forces from the other 4 islands, they were nothing in his eyes. He did not take them seriously at all. As he is possible, he spirit as Spirit King on. 30,000 spirit jades? You talk big, but it's a pity that I won't let go of anything I fancy. In this set of 10 pieces, there is coincidentally a material that can be used not only for casting, but also for refining pills. I'm going to personally refine a grade 4 muscle beautifying pill for junior sister Tian Chan, so that my junior sister's skin will always be smooth, firm, and glossy. Xianxia paused, then chuckled and said, "So, 50,000 spirit jades." As soon as he said that, the crowd was in an uproar again. Just for one material in the set of 10 pieces, he actually called out a price of 50,000 spirit jades. Moreover, this material was only used to refine the muscle beautifying pill that was useless for cultivation, just to please a woman. This Xianxia from the pill hall was really a spendthrift. Looking at this person's arrogant behavior, Lin Yi couldn't help but be speechless. At this crucial moment, he actually met this kind of idiot who didn't lack spirit jades. His luck was really bad. However, Lin Yi was determined to get these rare materials. Even if he had to spend a lot of spirit jades, he wouldn't hesitate. He immediately said, 60,000 spirit jades. Unexpectedly, Xianxia didn't even bat an eyelid and immediately said, 80,000 spirit jades. 100,000 spirit jades. Lin Yi also didn't hesitate and said again, "Damn, you're ruthless." Xianxia instantly choked. Now that things had developed to this point, almost everyone present had been scared silly by the two of them. Although the materials used to forge the weapons were indeed rare, it was far from shocking. Now, it had been easily raised to the sky-high price of 100,000 spirit jades. It was simply unbelievable. Such a sky-high price was definitely not a small amount to any party. Even if Xianxia's family didn't lack spirit jades, he had to carefully consider whether it was worth it or not. After all, he was only bidding for these things to please a woman. Saying that he didn't do proper work was already very flattering for him. If he continued to fight with Lin Yi and his grandfather found out about this, he might be grounded for a month. That wouldn't be fun. Although Xianxia was an idiot, he wasn't a complete fool. At times like this, he still knew what was important. Immediately, he began to think of retreating. There was no need to get angry with a stranger he didn't know. Seeing the change in Xianxia's expression, Lin Yi was immediately happy. As long as this idiot backed down, no one else would compete with him for a mere 10 pieces of equipment. 100,000 spirit jades was a price that far exceeded its original value. No one would be stupid enough to continue bidding. As expected, Xianxia didn't speak. The rest of the people present all had a cold expression on their faces. They had no intention of participating in the competition. Seeing this, Housekeeper Song no longer hesitated and was about to make the final decision. 10 pieces of equipment could be sold for a sky-high price of 100,000 spirit jades. This time, the 4 Islands auction really had a lot of fools. They would definitely make a killing. However, just as Lin Yi was about to heave a sigh of relief, Xianxia, who had clearly thought of retreating, suddenly called out a price again. With a ferocious and arrogant face he said, "Wait, 200,000 spirit jades." With just one sentence, the entire crowd erupted. 200,000 spirit jades? Damn it, what was wrong with this world? Did this Shan Pao take the wrong medicine? Lin Yi was also inexplicably shocked. He looked deeply at the arrogant Xianxia and couldn't figure out what was going on. It wasn't until Lin Yi noticed the strange look in Tian Chan's eyes that he realized what was going on. Chapter 40:18. From her point of view, Lin Yi's unusual behavior of bidding against Xianxia was clearly to show his existence in front of her, to express his dissatisfaction with her previous indifference. Humph, I must thoroughly investigate this bumpkin's background when I return. He actually dared to rely on throwing spiritual jades to attract junior sister Tian Chan's attention in front of this young master. A toad wanting to eat swan meat. Do you think you're worthy? Xianxia scolded Lin Yi from afar while enjoying everyone's shocked gazes. The reason why he suddenly changed his mind was because of Tian Chan. He threw so many spiritual jades just to please Tian Chan, but now Tian Chan was actually paying attention to another man. How could he tolerate this? No matter how many spiritual jades he threw, he must trample on Lin Yi today. He must let this bumpkin who came out of nowhere know what a big shot of Middle Island was like. This strange turn of events really made Lin Yi stunned for a long time, but things did not end there. Lin Yi quickly calmed down and continued, "Since you are in such a good mood, I will accompany you to the end. 300,000 spiritual jades. Humph. You want to compete with me? You do not know the immensity of heaven and earth. Today, I will smash you to death with spiritual jades. 500,000 spiritual jades." Xianxia said arrogantly. In order to show his face in front of Tian Chan, he was hysterical and did not care about the price. 500,000 spiritual jades? Lin Yi raised his eyelids, and just when everyone thought that the madman was going to keep fighting with the idiot Xianxia, he suddenly changed the topic. "I actually just wanted to see how much money you have, that's all. I wasn't planning on buying this set in the first place, but since you're so sincere about it, I won't take it away from you. You can have the 500,000 spirit jades." With that, Lin Yi sat down leisurely, as if this matter really had nothing to do with him. Ha! He made such a big bet just to see the other party's capital? This invincible logic really shocked everyone present. As for Xianxia, he was stunned for a long time and couldn't react. After a long while, Xianxia slowly came back to his senses under the strange gazes of the surrounding people. No matter how brainless he was, he now knew that he had been completely fooled this time. "Fuck you, you cunning country bumpkin. I'm going to tear you to pieces today." Xianxia was about to lose his temper on the spot. Even when he was in the Middle Island, he was used to being domineering. Now that he came to the edge of the northernmost island, he naturally had no scruples. Under the watchful eyes of the public, he was actually teased and provoked by a nobody like Lin Yi. It was unbearable. However, before Xianxia could lose his temper, Steward Song's eyes had already turned cold. Countless fully armed northern garrison soldiers were ready to attack. Even if Xianxia's identity was special, this was the northernmost island after all. There was only one owner, and that was Steward Song, who was acting as the island owner. If Xianxia was allowed to make trouble here, it would be no different than slapping his face in public. Regardless of status or strength, the northernmost island was an extremely special force among the Heaven Stage Islands. It was a special existence that transcended the 5 major islands. Although they were polite to the people from the Middle Island, they would never compromise. If Xianxia wanted to make trouble here, he was simply courting death.
In the blink of an eye, the situation became tense. Everyone held their breaths as a conflict was about to unfold. Fortunately, the rest of the people from the middle island beside Xianxia got up in time to suppress him. They were not as arrogant and fearless as Xianxia. They knew that if they let things go on like this, they would only get themselves into trouble.
What are you doing? Let me go. Are you trying to rebel? Xianxia did not give up.
However, the people around him were no weaker than him. They worked together to suppress him. No matter how strong Xianxia was, he could not move for a while. Although this idiot's brain was not very good, his strength was shockingly strong. Lin Yi looked at this scene from afar. Even if he did not directly feel the aura emitted from Xianxia, he could indirectly feel the strength of the other party. He was not on the same level as Xianxia at all. Young hero Lin, there is actually no need for you to give in. Although 500,000 spiritual jades is a little too much, our Hong merchant group can still afford it. Hong Zhong, who was at the side, said. With the huge help that Lin Yi had given to the Hong merchant group this time, no matter how much spiritual jades he had, the Hong merchant group would definitely pay for him without hesitation. After all, during this period of time, although the Hong merchant group had been tricked by Wang Tong and the others and was extremely short of high-end resources, correspondingly, the flow of spiritual jades in their hands was extremely abundant. 500,000 spiritual jades was not a problem at all. There is no need for that. In my opinion, the value of this 10-piece set is not more than 30,000. Isn't it crazy to raise it to 500,000 just to spite a fool? Lin Yi shook his head and said. He did not know how much the top-grade elixirs he refined for Hong Zhong would be sold at in the end, but it was already very kind that Hong Zhong had supported him to this point. There was no reason to waste spiritual jades at all. However, looking at Zhang Tianjie's ferocious expression from afar, which seemed to want to swallow him alive, Lin Yi also secretly cursed in his heart. Not only do you want to touch my woman, but you also want to steal my casting materials. Damn it, just wait and see. Lin Yi was also a ruthless person in the secular world. Even in the current North Island, he was a master who would kill whoever he disliked. This time, he was really a little annoyed. Hearing Lin Yi say so, Hong Zhong did not say anything more. He immediately nodded and said, Well anyway, the casting materials you want should not be limited to this shop. I will think of a way later, and there should be a chance to help you gather them. However, Lin Yi replied with a non-committal, Whoever started the trouble should end it. Now his mind was completely focused on Zhang Tianjie. Whether it was for Tian Chan or for the casting materials, he must end things with Zhang Tianjie. The main goal of this time was to lose the auction item, so the next auction had little to do with Lin Yi. Although with the spiritual jades in his hand and the support of Hong Zhong, his capital was not less than Zhang Tianjie's, and he was competitive enough for any rare auction item. It was a pity that Lin Yi's mind was not on this anymore. In fact, not only Lin Yi, but also Zhang Tianjie had lost interest in the auction after experiencing the twists and turns just now. Now he only wanted to do one thing, which was to go back and ask someone to find out the details of Lin Yi as soon as possible, and then find a chance to kill this ignorant bumpkin. Chapter 4019. In the end, after a whole day of intense auctions, the Four Islands auction finally came to an end at sunset. All the items provided by the Chambers of Commerce had been auctioned off. However, this didn't mean that the auction was over. On the contrary, this was only the first part of the auction. From the second day onwards, it would be an individual auction. Every participant who came to the North Island could take out their good stuff for auction. All kinds of rare treasures that had never been heard of or seen before would surface at that time. However, in today's auction alone, the more than 100 top-grade elixirs that Lin Yi had personally refined were unsurprisingly the most important and eye-catching items at the end of the auction. Even if the grade of the elixirs was not high, it was still a strategic elixir that only the core disciples of the super forces had the right to enjoy. Ordinary people couldn't even see it. Including the 10 elixirs from the Middle Island Alchemy Hall and the other major chambers of commerce, the number of top-grade elixirs in this Four Islands auction had reached an unprecedented 130 elixirs, and 80% of them came from the Hong Chamber of Commerce. 3 elixirs in a group, 5 elixirs in a group, and even 10 elixirs in a group. Every group of elixirs inevitably became a bomb that detonated the auction, constantly breaking the record of the transaction price. These astronomical figures, which made people unconsciously dry up just by listening to them, clearly illustrated to everyone the same concept, What was called, "There is a price but no supply." In the end, the Hong Chamber of Commerce had a great harvest. Relying on Lin Yi's more than 100 top-grade elixirs, the final transaction price actually reached more than 1,000,000 spiritual jades, which was simply astounding. On average, this price was more than 10,000 spiritual jades for each elixir, which was simply an unimaginable miracle in normal times. When Lin Yi sold the top-grade foundation establishment barrier-breaking elixirs to the Hong Chamber of Commerce, the discount was only 800 spiritual jades. Here it had actually increased by more than 10 times. It had to be said that on occasions like auctions, there were indeed a lot of idiots who had too many spiritual jades. No wonder so many super chambers of commerce regarded this auction as a must-win, racking their brains and being ambitious. No matter what, after this battle, the Hong Merchant Guild could finally hold their heads high. In the beginning, they had been targeted by everyone in every possible way. But today, they had reaped a great harvest. In this battle to turn the situation around, the Hong Merchant Guild could be said to have fought beautifully. The significance of this battle was far more than just earning 1,000,000 spiritual jades. If it weren't for these 100 or so top-grade elixirs, the Four Islands auction this time, under the joint attack of many super chambers of commerce like the Grand Chamber of Commerce and the All-Access Grand Chamber of Commerce, was very likely to become the Hong Chamber of Commerce's Waterloo. After that, they would be taken advantage of by others and disintegrated. This was not impossible, but extremely likely. But now, not only did the Hong Chamber of Commerce successfully resolve the crisis, but they also successfully gained a foothold. They even had the capital to wait for an opportunity to launch a counterattack. They even had the opportunity to attack. Then, they would be able to take the opportunity to attack. If they handled it well, not only would they not suffer, but also, they could take the opportunity to attack. All of this could be said to be due to Lin Yi's contributions. It was not an exaggeration to say that to the Hong Merchant Group, Lin Yi was a great benefactor who turned the tide. Young hero Lin, this old man will never forget the great kindness you have shown me this time. Even an experienced and prudent person like Hong Zhong couldn't help but be overjoyed when he saw the accounts. He bowed to Lin Yi repeatedly. This time, Lin Yi not only saved the Hong Chamber of Commerce, but more importantly, he also saved Hong Zhong. Otherwise, without Lin Yi's help, Hong Zhong would have become the scapegoat that the higher-ups pushed out to take the blame. You're being too serious, Manager Hong. We've been working together for so long. Helping you is helping myself. Don't talk about gratitude. You're treating me like an outsider. Lin Yi hurriedly helped him up. However, Hong Zhong waved his hand and shook his head. Cooperation is cooperation, and kindness is kindness. I am still clear about this. I can't thank you enough for your kindness. I will remember it. Seeing that Hong Zhong insisted, Lin Yi could only let him be. He nodded and said, "Fine. I still need to rely on Manager Hong in the future. Let's have a long way to go." Hong Zhong chuckled and stroked his beard. Well said, well said. If young hero Lin has any requests, this old man will not hesitate to go through water and tread on fire. However, this time, young hero Lin has not only done this old man a personal favor, but also a great favor to the entire Hong Chamber of Commerce. This old man must get the higher-ups to express their gratitude. I don't think that's necessary. Lin Yi was a little worried. If Hong Zhong really said that to the higher-ups of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, wouldn't it mean that Hong Zhong wanted to repay his kindness? That would be a little inappropriate. Hong Zhong was old and shrewd. He could see through Lin Yi's concerns. He immediately smiled and said, "Young hero Lin, don't worry. We talk about kindness in private, but businessmen always pursue profit. There has always been only business cooperation. There is no such thing as kindness. So this time, you have to treat it as a business transaction. You helped the Hong Chamber of Commerce resolve such a big crisis. It's reasonable for you to ask for something in return. No one can blame you. Time will be wasted. So you have to think carefully about what you want in return." This logic was not difficult to understand. Lin Yi and Hong Zhong could talk about kindness, but the Hong Chamber of Commerce might not care about this. Lin Yi still had to get some substantial benefits as soon as possible. However, Lin Yi could not think of any benefits at the moment. He immediately asked, "What kind of return? Manager Hong, why don't you give me an idea?" In this old man's opinion, there are only two ways. One is to directly ask for spiritual jades. With young hero Lin's contribution this time, Not only will all the auction proceeds belong to young hero Lin, but you can also ask for a reward of hundreds of thousands of spiritual jades. This is a real benefit, simple and practical. Young hero Lin, are you interested? Hong Zhong probed. What about the second one? Lin Yi asked. A reward of hundreds of thousands of spiritual jades was indeed tempting. But for Lin Yi, as long as he had the divine armament cauldron to refine pills, he could earn more spiritual jades in the future. In this way it was not so attractive. As for the second one, it sounds a little fake. That is to take the opportunity to get a position in the Hong Chamber of Commerce. But young hero Lin, you are an outsider. No matter how great your contribution is, it is impossible to give you a position with real power. At most, it will be a nominal title. For example, this time you can try to fight for the title of Honorary Vice President. Hong Zhong smiled mysteriously. Honorary Vice President? Isn't this a little exaggerated? Lin Yi's eyelids twitched. Chapter 40-20. So, if shopkeeper Hong were to choose, which one would you choose? Lin Yi asked. Hong Zhong smiled. If I were to choose, I would definitely choose the second one. As long as you have enough power and status, you can have as many spiritual jades as you want. However, although this honorary vice president title is just a title, it at least represents status and privileges. Under normal circumstances, no amount of spiritual jades can buy it. When young hero Lin arrives at Middle Island, this title will make it much more convenient for you to do things. If that's the case, then I'll have to trouble shopkeeper Hong. Lin Yi immediately made up his mind. No matter what, he had to go to Middle Island in the future. Since Hong Zhong had already said so, there was no need to hesitate. Young hero Lin is indeed decisive. Once you fill in this appointment letter, you will be the honorary vice president of our Hong Chamber of Commerce. Hong Zhong smiled as he took out an appointment letter and handed it to Lin Yi. Obviously, he had already communicated with the headquarters. Then from now on, we will be colleagues. However, since I am the honorary vice president, then shopkeeper Hong. Lin Yi was slightly stunned and then smiled. If he had chosen spiritual jades, Hong Zhong would not have taken out this appointment letter. However, Hong Zhong knew him well and knew that he would definitely choose the position of vice president. This incident happened so suddenly. It's certain that someone is behind it, but within the Hong Chamber of Commerce, there must be someone who doesn't sit properly. Hong Zhong smiled meaningfully. Settling accounts after autumn is the right time. Speaking of which, it has been a long time since this old man has moved from his seat. Lin Yi smiled knowingly. Then I will wait for shopkeeper Hong's promotion. Just as Lin Yi was talking to Hong Zhong, the entire Heroes Gathering Hall was in chaos. There was no other reason. Xianxia was sending people everywhere, trying to find ways to investigate Lin Yi's background. Xianxia knew that she couldn't continue watching the situation develop in the direction that she didn't want to see the most. Otherwise, the situation would change. Things might really get out of hand. Thinking of this, Xianxia immediately found a powerful female cultivator. Her name was Xianxia, and she was the master that Xianxia had acknowledged in the alchemy hall after being teleported to Heaven Stage Island. Come find master in the middle of the night. What's the matter? Xianxia looked at Xianxia with a gentle gaze. She was very fond of this new disciple that she had accepted not long ago, and had always treated her as her own. Xianxia bowed respectfully and took out a pill from her bosom. She had specially bid for it during the auction during the day. Master, regardless of the quality of these elixirs, they are considered the best even among the best. I'm just a little puzzled. The Hong Chamber of Commerce has never been known for elixirs, so how do they get their hands on such high-quality elixirs, and more than 100 of them at once? Xianxia pretended to be puzzled. This question. Xianxia and the others had been thinking about it for a long time. That's right. Even the Five Elements Pharmacy, which has always been famous for its elixirs, only took out 10 of them this time. The Hong Chamber of Commerce actually took out more than 100 of them at once. It's really unbelievable. If this continues, the Five Elements Pharmacy might be squeezed out by them. Xianxia immediately agreed. That's right. The Five Elements Pharmacy is an important source of income for the Alchemy Hall. We can't let anything happen to it. So I feel that I should find a chance to investigate this clearly. I'm very pleased that you have such intentions. Xianxia smiled gently. Then she said, "Oh right, do you know that young man from the Hong Chamber of Commerce? I seem to have heard him call your name yesterday." "Yes, I've seen him a few times in the secular world, but I'm not familiar with him," Tian Chan replied. "Since that's the case, Chan, you can think of a way to ask him about the origins of these elixirs. Maybe you'll be able to find some clues," Xianxia suggested. Sure enough, Xianxia's words were exactly what Tian Chan wanted. She bid for this elixir precisely because of this intention. She wanted to be able to see Lin Yi properly. "Yes, disciple understands." Tian Chan immediately left Xianxia's room and turned to leave the Hall of Heroes. She had to pass on the news here to Lin Yi as soon as possible so that he could prepare early. Tian Chan's sudden visit really gave Lin Yi a pleasant surprise. From the first time he saw Tian Chan yesterday until now, Tian Chan's abnormal reaction had already become a big knot in Lin Yi's heart. During the day, there were many people around, especially when Xianxia was beside Tian Chan. Even if Lin Yi wanted to talk to Tian Chan, he didn't have the chance at all. After the auction ended, Tian Chan immediately returned to the Hall of Heroes with the others. Lin Yi was even more helpless. He didn't expect that she would take the initiative to visit him now. "Tian Chan, are you all right?" Lin Yi took a deep breath. He originally had a lot of things to say, but they turned into a simple greeting. Hong Zhong, who was originally with him, smiled playfully when he saw this. He tactfully left the room and gave the two of them some space to be alone. After Hong Zhong left, Tian Chan's originally cold expression gradually became complicated. Finally, there was a bit of the familiar warmth from the secular world. Thinking back to the little things that happened between the two of them in the secular world, it was so beautiful compared to now. She originally thought that after coming to Heaven Stage Island, it would be a wonderful journey that she yearned for, but she didn't expect the reality to be so cruel. It was unbearable to look back, and even if she wanted to escape, she couldn't. Thinking of the purpose of this trip, Tian Chan's mood immediately fell to the bottom. After a long time, Tian Chan's face darkened, and she lowered her head. "Lin Yi, I'm sorry." "What's wrong?" Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat, and then he had a bad premonition. He quickly asked. Tian Chan lowered her head and didn't speak for a long time, with a sad expression on her face that was about to cry. Lin Yi quickly squeezed out a smile on his face, and pretended to be enlightened. "Oh, you're talking about the matter of deliberately not acknowledging me before, right? It's okay, after all, there are many people, and it's not a bad thing to be careful. I can understand, and you've already come to find me, right? I'm not that stingy." "You're stingy." Tian Chan couldn't help but laugh, but then she tightened her face again, and said with a serious face, "Lin Yi, I'm not joking with you anymore. I came to find you today to tell you one thing. From today onwards, don't come to find me again, and if you meet me in the future, you have to pretend that you're not familiar with me." Chapter 40:21. There's no why. If you want me to be well, then do as I say. Tian Chan forcefully held back the tears in her eyes. She tried her best to not appear so weak and aggrieved in front of Lin Yi. She constantly told herself to be strong, or at least pretend to be strong. Lin Yi took a deep breath, looked at Tian Chan, and said word by word, "Tian Chan, actually, we came all the way from the secular world. You should know what kind of person I am. If you can't give me a reasonable explanation, I will never give up, unless you don't like me anymore." Hearing this, Tian Chan's heart suddenly trembled. With her unforgettable feelings for Lin Yi, how could she be willing to say such cruel words? It was every girl's most romantic dream to be together with the person they loved forever. Tian Chan was naturally no exception. However, reality did not allow it. If she did not let Lin Yi let go now, it would not only be her who would be hurt, but Lin Yi would also inevitably suffer a disaster. Instead of watching Lin Yi die in front of her, it was better to forget about each other. Lin Yi had so many confidants. Surely, he would soon be able to heal the pain, right? "Yes. I don't like you anymore." Tian Chan turned her head and did not look at Lin Yi. Heaven Stage Island was not like the secular world. Anyone from here was more powerful than them. Tian Chan naturally did not want Lin Yi to make an unnecessary sacrifice. Seeing Tian Chan's behavior, Lin Yi frowned slightly, and then suddenly thought of something. "Is it because of that Xianxia?" Faced with Lin Yi's interrogation, Tian Chan was suddenly shocked, but she pretended to be calm and said, Why do you have so many questions? If you ask again, I will kick you. After half a year. Hearing Tian Chan's familiar mantra again, Lin Yi couldn't help but feel sour in his heart. He suddenly opened his arms and pulled Tian Chan into his embrace, hugging her tightly. You! Tian Chan let out a soft cry, and when she regained her senses, her nose was already filled with Lin Yi's scent, a familiar scent that she could never forget. Tian Chan struggled symbolically, but she couldn't break free from Lin Yi's embrace. She immediately gave up trying. If it weren't for the cruel reality, she wouldn't have thought of breaking free from such a warm and comforting embrace. In the small room, under the candlelight, the couple hugged each other tightly, quietly feeling each other's heartbeat, unwilling to let go for a long time. After a long time, Lin Yi stroked Tian Chan's hair. He asked, "Now can you tell me why? I beg you, don't ask. This matter doesn't benefit you at all. Just pretend that you didn't see me, okay? If I knew you would be here, I wouldn't have come to this auction." Tian Chan's delicate body trembled slightly in Lin Yi's embrace. Her voice was filled with a pitiful sob. Lin Yi still hugged her tightly in his arms. He reached out and patted her back lightly. He said slowly, "Don't be afraid. There's always a way out. Trust me. As long as you tell me properly, there's always a way to solve everything. Tell me, is it because of that Xianxia? What did he do to you?" At this point, Tian Chan couldn't hide it anymore. She could only admit, "That's right. He's the direct grandson of our pill hole's deputy hall master. His grandfather said in front of everyone that he wants me to be engaged to him." "Want you to be engaged to him?" I think he's tired of living." Lin Yi's eyes narrowed. Instantly, a murderous aura was revealed. Tian Chan covered Lin Yi's mouth and shook her head. "Don't worry. No matter what, I won't let him get away with it. However, he is an extremely jealous person. Anyone who has even the slightest bit of relationship with me, even if it's just a few words from my little junior brother, will inevitably explode during alchemy within a few days. Although there is no evidence, everyone knows that it's definitely his doing. It's just that under the tyranny of his grandfather, who is the vice hall master, no one dares to say anything." The pill hall's deputy hall master. What's his strength level? Lin Yi sighed and asked. At least above the golden core stage. Because Zhang Tianjie himself is already a golden core stage master. Tian Chan said with lingering fear, strength is only secondary. What's important is his grandfather's position. Because Hall Master Zhang is not around all year round, he is almost a person of authority in the alchemy hall. Only a few registered disciples of Master Zhang can ignore him and mind their own business. Other than that, in the entire alchemy hall, he can be considered the most arrogant existence. Zhang Liju's disciple? Then since he received Zhang Liju's inheritance in the common world, did that mean he was also Zhang Liju's disciple? Lin Yi mumbled but didn't say much to Tian Chan. He just nodded. All right, I understand. Looking at Lin Yi's calm face, Tian Chan felt that something was wrong. She smiled bitterly. Even if we don't talk about his grandfather, Zhang Tianjie alone is already super hard to deal with. Golden core stage masters aren't people we can fight at all. Lin Yi, don't do anything stupid. It's better if we pretend that we don't know each other. If we get too close, it might bring disaster to you. Lin Yi smiled non-committally. What's going to come will come eventually. I can't pretend that I don't know you just because of some bullshit like this. Tian Chan was a little touched, but panicked at the same time. She kicked Lin Yi lightly. It's true, I'm not joking with you. You've already caught his attention when you competed with him at the auction today. He's already looking for people to investigate you, so you have to be careful these few days. Don't give him any chances to take advantage of you. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Lin Yi nodded on the surface, but his heart was already filled with killing intent. The current situation was such that even if he didn't take the initiative to cause trouble for Zhang Tianjie would definitely cause trouble for him. Moreover, because of what happened to Tian Chan, they were already irreconcilable enemies. Plus, if he were to think further, he'd go to Zhongdao to ask for Zhang Liju's help. Leaving a bastard like Zhang Tianjie behind would only bring him a lot of unnecessary trouble. He might as well use this chance to kill him, and that'd be the end of it. Seeing Lin Yi's reaction, Tian Chan thought that he heard what she said just now. She let out a sigh of relief. She didn't care what happened to her, but if she killed Lin Yi because of her, she would really regret it for the rest of her life. Chapter 40-22. Staying in the small room, Xianxia buried herself in Lin Yi's arms for a long time before she reluctantly left Lin Yi's embrace. If the conditions allowed, she even hoped that she could hide in this warm embrace for the rest of her life. However, she came here in the name of finding Lin Yi to find out about the origin of the elixir. If she stayed for too long, it would definitely arouse suspicion. Especially if Xianxia found out that she was meeting Lin Yi at night, Lin Yi would not be far from death. In the end, Lin Yi watched Xianxia leave reluctantly in the night. He did not have any worries about his children. On the contrary, his heart was filled with murderous intent. He'd made up his mind to get rid of that idiot Xianxia from the very beginning. After all, Xianxia had already sent people to investigate him, and if he really did manage to find out more about him, it'd be too easy for him to give himself away when the time came. Putting on the thousand silk mask, Lin Yi immediately got up and went to the Hall of Heroes. However, the first problem he encountered was how to sneak into the Hall of Heroes without alerting the guards. Originally, according to the Northern Guard's explanation, if he came with Xianxia, Lin Yi could actually go in directly. However, this operation was of great importance. Any carelessness could lead to disaster. Lin Yi did not want Xianxia to be involved in any way, so he had to figure out a way himself. His early career as an assassin had taught Lin Yi one thing. There was never an impenetrable wall in the world. No matter how tight the guards were, as long as he waited patiently, he would always find an opportunity. As expected, Lin Yi waited in the dark for a full 4 hours, taking advantage of the fact that the North Guard was changing shifts, and finally grasped the opportunity. He exerted his full speed and successfully climbed over the wall before the new round of guards arrived. After entering the Hall of Heroes, the next problem was how to find Xianxia. Of course, there was an even bigger and more crucial problem, and that was how to kill Xianxia. Don't forget, Xianxia had already said that although Xianxia was an alchemist, he was an out-and-out gold core stage expert, a powerful existence that was completely above all the Foundation establishment stage experts. The powerful aura that he had inadvertently revealed during the auction during the day was already very clear. On the other hand, Lin Yi himself was only in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment stage. At most, he would be considered invincible among the newcomers in the Welcome Pavilion. In this northernmost island, in front of Xianxia, who was at the Golden Core stage, he couldn't even withstand a single blow. If they really fought, Xianxia wouldn't even need to show his face and could easily crush Lin Yi into pieces. Although in my eyes, a master of the Gold Core stage is nothing, but for the current you, it's not a big deal. Even if he was an idiot or a fake Gold Core stage cultivator, he was still a big deal. Kid, before you make a move you have to think clearly. Even the ghost was surprised by Lin Yi's plan. The situation forced me, and I was forced to do it. But with Senior's vision, if I release the new move that I recently researched, is it possible to kill a master of the Gold Core stage? Lin Yi responded in his mind. You've really stumped me. A mid-stage Foundation establishment cultivator instantly killing a Golden Core cultivator. Even with my many years of experience, I have never heard of it. After all, that's something that shouldn't normally happen. The ghostly thing paused for a moment before continuing. However, that move of yours was quite original. A true chi bomb can kill a master of the peak late stage of the Foundation establishment stage. This move seems to be even better, and there should be some chance of success. Hearing the ghost's words, Lin Yi suddenly laughed. Not to mention some chance, even if there is only one chance, I have to try this time. If I can't kill Xianxia with such a rare opportunity, there will be no more chances when he goes back to the Middle Island. Even if it was just for Xianxia, Lin Yi had to find a way to kill Xianxia today. Otherwise, if Xianxia went back and forced Xianxia to get engaged, he would not be able to help at all in the far North Island. How could he be worthy of being Xianxia's man then? Carefully holding his breath and hiding his body, Lin Yi secretly looked around the heroes' gathering hall, but he could not find Xianxia. Of course, this was because he did not dare to get too close. After all, even apart from the Northern Guard, the people who lived in the heroes' gathering hall were all masters, and there were many masters above the Gold Core stage. With Lin Yi's strength, if he got too close, he would be courting death. But he'd have to take a risk if he couldn't find the person he was looking for. At this moment, several people appeared from the main gate of the heroes' gathering hall and hurried to a building opposite the guest rooms. Judging from the familiar sign, It should be an alchemy room specially prepared for guests. Lin Yi had used it before, but it was just outside the heroes' gathering hall. Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. When he was looking around, he had been to all the other places except the alchemy room. Could it be that Xianxia was inside? This was not surprising. The reason why he bid with him for the 10-piece set of casting equipment during the day was to get one of the materials to refine the 4th-grade muscle-beautifying pill to please Tian. At this moment, it was reasonable for him to refine the pill at night. As expected, after those people waited at the door for a while, the door of the alchemy room opened and the person who walked out was Xianxia. What kind of bullshit efficiency is this? It's just investigating the background of a country bumpkin. With our alchemy hall's intelligence network, it actually took such a long time. What a useless good-for-nothing. Fortunately, this young master hasn't started refining the flesh beauty pill yet. Otherwise, if I were to be disturbed by you halfway and cause the refining to fail, causing junior sister Tian to be disappointed in this young master, can you bear the responsibility? Xianxia scolded them to their faces. Those people shrunk their necks and did not dare to talk back. They let Xianxia scold them for a while. When his anger subsided, they followed Xianxia to a room not far from the alchemy room to report the information they had found. Seeing this, Lin Yi did not follow them to eavesdrop. Instead, he pondered for a while and slipped into the alchemy room. From what Xianxia said just now, it was easy to tell that this guy would definitely come back to refine the muscle-beautifying pill after listening to those people's reports. For Lin Yi, this was simply a godsend opportunity. Chapter 4023. Lin Yi didn't know whether the materials in front of him were brought by Xianxia personally, or the extreme North Island itself had been placed here in advance and specially prepared for distinguished guests like them. However, in an inconspicuous corner of the display cabinet, he found the 10-piece casting set that was auctioned during the day. Lin Yi glanced at it and counted it. There were only 9 of them. The remaining one had been taken out separately and placed next to the alchemy furnace with the rest of the alchemy materials. It should be prepared by Xianxia to refine the beauty pill. Fortunately, the remaining 9 casting materials had already covered the 6 that Lin Yi needed. Lin Yi didn't hesitate to put it into the space of the jade pendant. Anyway, these were placed in an inconspicuous corner. Even if Xianxia came back, he wouldn't notice it in a short time. However, as for the other alchemy materials present, Lin Yi didn't want to touch them. Firstly, it was easy to arouse Xianxia's suspicion if he took too many. If it wasn't Xianxia's, then Xianxia's death would arouse the suspicion of others. Lin Yi didn't want to complicate matters. Time was pressing. Xianxia might come back at any time. Lin Yi immediately began to prepare the new big killing move. It was impossible for a middle stage of foundation establishment stage to challenge a gold core stage master by conventional means. No matter how powerful Lin Yi's trump card was, or how powerful his martial arts technique was, it was all in vain. In any case, he absolutely couldn't escape the fate of being killed in a second. The only way was to do what he did to Nan Tianyong, who was at the peak of the late stage of foundation establishment stage. He prepared a super true chi bomb in advance and threw it at his face when he was unprepared. It was the same trick. The last time he used it on Su Lingchong, who was at the peak of foundation establishment stage, it was obviously not effective. Although it was because of insufficient time to prepare. But at least it had proved that with Lin Yi's current strength, it was obviously unrealistic to use the same trick to deal with a gold core stage master whose strength was far above Su Lingchong. Therefore, Lin Yi began to study a new big killing move. After all, the big killing move in the secular world was already stretched thin on Heavenly Stage Island. They were already stretched thin on Heaven Stage Island and could not continue to be used. The first thing Lin Yi thought of was fusion. He wanted to fuse other people's great killing moves with his own. This was how the Wildfire 8 trigrams palm was created. What Lin Yi was thinking was that if he could fuse other people's big killing moves with his own true chi bomb, in that case, wouldn't its power be greatly increased? He thought about it for a while, and for some reason, he thought of Kong Ming Ming's alchemic fire bomb. In Zhang Liju's notes, Zhanqi and alchemic fire were 2 completely different forms of energy. When they were forcefully combined by external forces, the power that burst forth from them was something that he had never seen before in his life, and it left him gasping in amazement. Lin Yi, who had been racking his brains, was suddenly enlightened. Not only did he know how to use Zhanqi bombs, but he also knew how to use pill flame bombs. Hence, just like that, A new martial technique was created. However, everything was based on theory, and he had yet to experiment with it. While Xianxia was not back yet, Lin Yi immediately found a hidden shelf and sat cross-legged, doing two things at the same time. Condensing true chi bomb in one hand and alchemic firebomb in the other. He tried his best to condense both to the extreme at the same time. After the time it took to burn a stick of incense, even with the jade space quickly replenishing the true chi in his body. Lin Yi, on the other hand, was sweaty from the exhaustion. The chi bomb and the firebomb, when condensed to the extreme, were both deadly. Now that he was doing both at the same time, one could only imagine the intensity of the process. At this moment, Lin Yi's ears trembled slightly. The footsteps outside the door were getting closer and closer. Xianxia was back. What the hell, he's just a grassroots newbie from the North Island, and he dares to come here and challenge me. He's really evil. Humph, that's good. It doesn't matter if I kill this kind of trash. Tomorrow, I'll let him die without a burial place. Xianxia walked into the alchemy room while cursing. Lin Yi's heart suddenly jumped to his throat. In the face of an expert in the gold core stage, he only had one chance to attack with such a huge gap in strength. If he missed, he would definitely die. Moreover, he had already learned a big lesson from his previous encounter with Su Ling Chong. The more powerful an expert was, the smaller the chances left for him. He had to take advantage of the moment when the opponent was the most relaxed and suddenly launch a fatal attack. Otherwise, no matter how fierce the newly developed killer move was, once the opponent dodged it, it would be useless. Therefore, Lin Yi had to be careful and look for the best opportunity. Stepping into the door, Xianxia casually glanced around the room and did not find anything unusual. It was not that he was afraid of someone sneaking up on him. It was just out of a cautious habit that an alchemist had developed since childhood. After confirming that there was nothing wrong, Xianxia closed the door and walked to the alchemy furnace, ready to start refining the 4th-grade muscle beautifying pill. Until now, Lin Yi still held his breath and did not move. He knew that this was not the time when the opponent was the most relaxed, and it was not the best opportunity. He still needed to wait patiently. Finally, after Xianxia finished resting, he got up and picked up the prepared materials and put them into the cauldron. Just as he began to condense the elixir fire, something strange happened. Without warning, a pair of palms suddenly emerged from behind him, each holding two kinds of extremely powerful energy. With a roar, both hands suddenly put together in front of Xianxia's chest. The true chi bomb and the elixir firebomb, which were already on the verge of exploding, were forcefully pinched together by an external force at this moment, less than a fist's distance from Xianxia's face. Xianxia never thought that someone would dare to hide in the alchemy room and attack him from behind. When he reacted, the true chi bomb and the elixir firebomb had collided in front of his face and exploded. Boom! Not only the hero's gathering hall, but even the entire northernmost island suddenly shook. All kinds of birds and beasts ran wildly in all directions. It was a horrifying scene of the end of the world. At this moment, everyone on the northernmost island couldn't help but be shocked and pale. Everyone was panicking and looked at each other, not knowing what to do. A wretched figure suddenly sprang out from the broken walls of the alchemy room. Taking advantage of the fact that everyone had not rushed over, he fled with all his might. This person was Lin Yi. Chapter 40-24. But before that, Lin Yi stayed at the messy scene for a little while. Even if he had to risk being discovered, he had to fake the scene and make it look like an accident. Since Xianxia liked to let others die by exploding furnaces, then it wouldn't be too much to use this trick. After all, this guy's identity was not trivial. If he was really found to be an assassination, then the entire northernmost island would be investigated, and then it would be a big trouble. But if this guy died because of a cauldron explosion, then it would be his own fault. He couldn't blame anyone else. The extreme North Island could use this excuse to explain to the Hall of Elixirs, and they wouldn't have to risk offending so many important people and search for him. And Lin Yi would be able to escape. Now Lin Yi, the culprit, was heavily injured, and Xianxia, who was caught off guard, was hit right in the chest. One could imagine what would happen to him. Even if he was a powerful golden core master, he was still made of flesh and blood. There was no way he could withstand such a horrifying explosion. If it was a pure chi bomb or a pellet firebomb, Xianxia might be able to defend himself like Su Ling Chong did, relying on his unparalleled chi to defend himself, but after the two were combined, it was a completely different concept. Even if Xianxia was a master of the gold core stage, suddenly encountering such a heaven-defying killing move, he could only be described as certain death. As for whether or not Xianxia was completely dead, Lin Yi didn't care anymore. One thing was for sure, even if he wasn't completely dead, he wouldn't be far from it, unless Zhang Liju was here. Otherwise, no one would be able to save him. The only thing Lin Yi was worried about was whether or not he could escape successfully. The earth-shattering tremor had alerted the entire northernmost island, including the nearby northern guards. The nearby northern guards quickly gathered around after they realized what was going on. With Lin Yi's current state, he would be screwed if they found him. Countless people quickly approached the scene. Lin Yi had purposely chosen a direction with fewer people, and he had the cover of the night. But in the end, he could not resist the crowd from all directions, especially the well-trained northern garrison guards. Others might have gathered around just to watch the show, but the northern garrison was clearly in a state of emergency. Lin Yi was covered in injuries and looked suspicious. It was easier said than done to slip out from under their noses. Lin Yi's movements could not be said to be slow, and he specifically chose to move through the most concealed corners. In this kind of chaotic situation where there were many eyes, the probability of being discovered and suspected was not high. However, he had a fatal problem, and that was his injury. The previous killer move used up a lot of stamina, and now the reflected injuries were even worse. Even if Lin Yi forcefully gritted his teeth and endured, he could clearly feel the rapid loss of physical strength. And at this time, he still hadn't left the Hall of Heroes. "Who is it?" A shout came from the corner in front of them, followed by dense but orderly footsteps. Judging from the sound, it should be a team of northern garrison guards. Lin Yi was shocked and didn't bother to check. Without any hesitation, he pushed open a door and entered. In his current embarrassing state, if he ran into them, he would definitely be arrested by the northern garrison guards as a suspicious person. That would be the end of everything. What was more, Lin Yi's current state was extremely poor. His physical strength was almost overdrawn, and even his genuine chi had become messy. Otherwise, with his hiding ability, he would not have been noticed by the northern garrison guards from so far away. No matter what, he must not be discovered. With that in mind, Lin Yi desperately flashed into the room next to him. But to his great surprise, what he saw was a lovely pink room. The room was very cozy, like a girl's boudoir. Hula hula hula. Ning Xuefei hummed a little song while taking a comfortable hot bath. She was in a good mood. At the auction during the day, she had successfully bid for 2 Foundation establishment bottleneck-breaking elixirs, which were rare treasures. Even in the Middle Island, they could not be bought all the time. She had to book them with the 5 Elements Commerce. She didn't expect that she would be so lucky to get them on the island in the north. In this way, she would be able to level up as soon as she touched the barrier. The success rate was almost 100%, which was incomparable to a Foundation establishment bottleneck-breaking elixir. For a girl like Ning Xuefei who wasn't passionate about strength, the thing she hated the most in her life was nothing more than the boring daily meditation and cultivation. If she was stuck at the bottleneck of leveling up and couldn't make any progress for a long time, or even forced to go into secluded cultivation, that kind of painful experience was something she deeply hated. She didn't want to experience it a second time in her life. Although the Foundation Establishment Bottleneck-Breaking Elixir could not be directly used as an experience elixir like the Foundation Establishment Elixir and could level up after eating it, at least it had an unparalleled miraculous effect for breaking through the barrier. It could save a lot of unnecessary seclusion and practice. Therefore, for Ning Xuefei, the harvest on the island in the north this time made her very happy. The only thing in Ning Xuefei's mind now was to ask the people of the Hong Chamber of Commerce tomorrow to see if she could get more elixirs. This time, she came to the island in the north in a hurry and didn't bring too many spiritual jades in her card. Today, she was very lucky to be able to bid for 2 Foundation Establishment bottleneck-breaking elixirs. It was unrealistic to bid for more elixirs with others. She could only think of other ways to discuss privately. This time, the Hong Chamber of Commerce directly took out more than 100 elixirs. Maybe there were still stocks that they hadn't taken out. If she could buy them privately, even if it was just a temporary reservation, it would be an unexpected surprise and worth a try. Just as Ning Xuefei was enjoying her bath, she suddenly saw an embarrassed figure stumbling in from behind the screen, with blood all over his body. Before she could react, he fell into her bathtub with a plop sound. Ah! Ning Xuefei was shocked. In a panic, she grabbed the water ladle next to her and smashed it on the back of Lin Yi's head. Lin Yi was already exhausted and in a very bad state. After being hit by this blow, his eyes rolled up and he directly fainted. However, before he closed his eyes, he still relied on his willpower to say a sentence. "Don't make a sound. When I wake up, I will reward you greatly."
Chapter 4025. Isn't this the young man from the Hong Chamber of Commerce? How did he get beaten up like this? Ning Xuefei was shocked and confused.
Because she wanted to buy the best elixirs from the Hong Chamber of Commerce, she had a deep impression of Hong Zhong and Lin Yi, especially Lin Yi, who had just fought with Xianxia during the day. Xianxia, a fool, was forced to buy a 10-piece set of casting equipment with a base price of only 10,000 spiritual jades at the sky-high price of 500,000 spiritual jades.
Ning Xuefei was so amused that she almost went crazy on the spot.
In Ning Xuefei's eyes, an idiot like Xianxia was not a good guy, while Lin Yi was a clever young man from the Hong Chamber of Commerce.
Obviously, he was not a bad guy.
Could it be that someone is going to rob the best elixirs from the Hong Chamber of Commerce, so they want to force this young man to commit a crime, but this young man doesn't obey them and escapes desperately?
Ning Xuefei's thoughts were so imaginative.
She wanted to buy elixirs from the Hong Chamber of Commerce, so she thought that others were thinking the same thing. So in the blink of an eye, she had already imagined a thrilling chivalrous scene.
From beginning to end, she did not associate the loud noise with it.
She thought it was just an ordinary earthquake in the far north island. She never thought that it was caused by something. Just when Ning Xuefei was fantasizing, there was a sudden knock on the door, followed by the voice of the Northern Guard. "You inside, open the door. We are the Northern Guard, and we suspect that an assassin has sneaked in."
"Hey, I'm taking a shower. What do you want?"
Ning Xuefei wrinkled her nose and shouted discontentedly.
"Ah."
Hearing this answer, the man at the door suddenly hesitated, but he seemed to be unwilling to give up. But another man's voice sounded next to him. "Pockmark, forget it.
This is Miss Ning's boudoir in West Island. How dare you check it? Do you want to die?"
"Yes, this is a big shot in West Island. Even Steward Song has to welcome her with a smile. This room is specially prepared for Miss Ning. No one else is allowed to stay here. We can't afford to offend her. Besides, we can't be sure that there is an assassin in here. Maybe your eyes were playing tricks on you." The other Northern Garrison guards also tried to persuade him. Finally, the Northern Guards gave up on the idea of searching the house. They apologized to Ning Xuefei through the door and left for the scene. Ning Xuefei heaved a sigh of relief when she heard the voices outside the door gradually fade away. Looking down at Lin Yi in his bathtub, he shook his head speechlessly.
"This guy can't drown here, can he? How am I supposed to take a bath with him here?" Ning Xuefei paused for a moment.
It was a little awkward, but Lin Yi was a man, after all. As a girl, she couldn't just continue soaking in the same tub as a stranger, no matter how insensitive she was. She couldn't just continue soaking in the same tub as a stranger, could she? He climbed out of the tub, dried himself quickly, and put on his clothes. Ning Xuefei turned her head again and looked at Lin Yi for a while. Then she reached out and dragged Lin Yi out of the tub. After all, the water in the tub was not deep, but it was not shallow either. With Lin Yi's current miserable state, if she left him lying in the tub, it was not impossible for him to drown. After dragging Lin Yi out, Ning Xuefei didn't do anything further.
She just squatted aside. Holding her head, she continued to look at Lin Yi.
After all, she was a girl, and a lady who never served people. Asking her to help a strange man like Lin Yi dry his body so that he wouldn't catch a cold was too much. It was already a great kindness for her to cooperate and not throw Lin Yi to the Northern Garrison guards. At the same time, the Heroes' Gathering Hall outside was in a complete mess. After finding out that the person in trouble was Xianxia, the young master of the Alchemy Hall, the entire Heroes' Gathering Hall was surrounded by countless Northern Garrison guards. Housekeeper Song and the big shots from all the islands were all there, but the rest were stopped outside by the Northern Garrison guards. It was related to Xianxia, a key figure. Before Housekeeper Song and the others came to a clear and unified conclusion, they had to strictly block all news. Otherwise, if the news spread like wildfire, or even to the Middle Island, it would be out of control. Leaving the situation outside aside, Lin Yi, who was in Ning Xuefei's boudoir, had been in a coma for 4 hours. He didn't wake up until the sky outside was turning bright. "What's your name?" Ning Shuefei, who was squatting aside until her legs were numb, quickly asked. Her eyes lit up. However, Lin Yi didn't respond to her. He closed his eyes and turned a deaf ear to her. After turning over, he sat down with his legs crossed and started the mantra. When he was in the space of the jade pendant, he had almost recovered from his injuries, but he still hadn't recovered his strength and genuine qi. "What? You're ignoring me?" Ning Shuefei pursed her lips, but she didn't say anything. She just squatted aside and watched. Girls who were insensitive were often more reasonable than most people, especially in such an abnormal situation. If it were someone else, they would have thrown Lin Yi to the northern garrison guards. Why would they keep such a suspicious stranger in their boudoir? In fact, Lin Yi didn't mean to ignore Ning Shuefei. It was just that he was at a critical moment. Not only was he recovering his strength, but the genuine qi in his body was expanding. This was a sign that he was about to break through. Counting the days, it hadn't been a long time since Lin Yi broke through to the middle stage of the foundation establishment stage. This time, he didn't take any elixirs to help him level up, and he was seriously injured. Lin Yi never thought that he would break through again so soon. However, although this was unexpected, it made sense when he thought about it carefully. For cultivators, every time they tried their best to be seriously injured, they could further explore the potential in their body. It was a rare transformation. It was not unusual to take this opportunity to break through. Lin Yi himself had experienced this many times. From the peak of the early stage of the foundation establishment stage to the middle stage of the foundation establishment stage was an extremely difficult threshold to cross. However, in comparison, from the middle stage to the peak of the middle stage of the foundation establishment stage was much easier. With Lin Yi's strong foundation, it was natural for him to break through this stage quickly. Under Ning Shuefei's gaze, Lin Yi urged the genuine qi in his body to move around his body over and over again, looking for a good opportunity to break through in one fell swoop. After a long time, Lin Yi's aura suddenly skyrocketed, startling many of the small ornaments in the room. They all trembled. If Ning Shuefei hadn't protected them with her body, her beloved ornaments would have been destroyed. This state lasted for a while. Finally, Lin Yi slowly withdrew his aura and returned to his usual reserved state. However, the occasional light in his eyes was obviously purer and more terrifying than before. Chapter 40-26. He let out a long breath, feeling refreshed as he stood up. He looked at the curious Ning Shuefei beside him, thinking back to what happened last night. He couldn't help but feel a little awkward. His consciousness wasn't clear at the time, but he could still remember a little of what happened. He broke into a strange woman's room and fell into her bathtub. More importantly, she happened to be taking a bath. Lin Yi could not help but feel guilty just thinking about it. Just when Lin Yi did not know what to say, there was a sudden rush of footsteps outside the door. They were well trained. It should be the Northern Garrison Guards. "This is the place. I told you there was something wrong here." The first voice sounded familiar. It was the Northern Garrison Guard who called the door last night, pockmarked. Lin Yi was shocked. The Hall of Heroes was on high alert. It was not surprising that the Northern Garrison Guards were attracted by the spiritual energy fluctuation caused by the breakthrough. However, it would be really troublesome if they were caught like this. After all, the Northern Garrison Guards were elites. They had been scared off by Ning Shuefei's background once last night, but now they were suspicious again. Moreover, such a big thing had happened. It was unrealistic to drive them away with just a few words. However, Ning Shuefei winked at Lin Yi, asking him to find a corner to hide. She got up and opened the door. Facing the suspicious Northern Garrison Guards, Ning Shuefei did not give them any chance to ask questions. She started to complain. "What are you doing? Yesterday, I just bid for 2 best-grade foundation building barrier breaking pills, and I was at the critical moment of taking them to break through, but I was interrupted by you guys. Now, I failed to break through, and all my efforts were wasted. How can your extreme North Island be like this?" Ning Shuefei said with a wronged expression. Miss Ning." The Northern Guards looked at each other. Given Ning Shuefei's status, it was not something that they could bear to be the scapegoat for. "You came to disturb me last night. It's not even dawn yet, and you're here to make trouble again. Is this how the extreme North Island treats its guests? Humph. Make your steward song pay for my pills tomorrow."
Ning Xuefei scolded her angrily.
She turned her head and instructed the young servant girl who heard the commotion next door and ran over to serve her. Xiaoling, go and call the staff of the Hong Chamber of Commerce over.
I'll ask him if there are any more top-grade pills.
So annoying, they're all wasted.
Ah yes. Little Ling shrunk her head and hurriedly left with small steps. When the Northern Guard saw this, they did not dare to stay any longer. They bowed and apologized to Ning Xuefei, and then hurriedly scattered. Half an hour later, Xiaoling came back to report. Miss, I didn't find the employee from the Hong Chamber of Commerce. Why don't I go ask him again when the sun is up?
Ning Xuefei waved her hand and said, There's no need.
I've already sent someone to find him. There's nothing for you to do here. You can leave first.
Yes.
Xiaoling immediately left obediently. Only Ning Xuefei and Lin Yi were left in the room. Ning Xuefei blinked her big eyes and pouted at Lin Yi as if she was asking for credit. Hey, are you all right? Don't I look very smart?
I'm fine. Thank you for your help, Miss Ning.
Lin Yi nodded gratefully. Ning Xuefei's response had not only gotten the North Guard off the hook, but also given him a legitimate reason to go back later. He didn't expect her to be so resourceful even though she seemed to be so insensitive. Just as he was worrying about how to repay her, Lin Yi suddenly caught a glimpse of a small wooden box with the Hong Chamber of Commerce's name engraved on the cabinet next to him. It was the 2 top-grade bottleneck breaking pills that Ning Xuefei had just mentioned. Lin Yi's heart moved, and he immediately said, I will remember Miss Ning's help. If there is any need in the future, Miss can go to Hong Zhong of the Hong Chamber of Commerce. No matter what elixir you want to refine, don't hesitate to ask. Just say that I agree. Ning Xuefei's beautiful eyes suddenly lit up. She was just thinking about this. She had taken the initiative to help Lin Yi just now because of this consideration. She did not expect that Lin Yi would take the initiative to ask. She could not help but nod and say, Okay, I won't stand on ceremony. Lin Yi immediately laughed. This girl's temperament was quite similar to his senior sister Shanghai Laner from the Towering Pavilion in the North Island. She should also be from a famous cultivation sect. But Shanghai Laner was not so insensitive. Looking at the gradually brightening sky outside, Lin Yi took out the 1,000 silk mask and was about to put it on. He was about to leave. He had forced himself to take off the 1,000 silk mask when he entered the room yesterday. His purpose was to let Miss Ning recognize him instead of driving him out.
Otherwise, he could not guarantee that Miss Ning would not betray him to a complete stranger.
Although he was grateful to Miss Ning, this place had become a troublesome place. It was easy to get into trouble if he stayed too long. Moreover, Lin Yi deliberately did not ask about her identity. He only knew that the Northern Guard said that her surname was Ning. It might not be a good thing to chat too much at this time. If he wanted to thank her, he could find another chance in the future. Are you leaving now? Let me see you off.
There are many Northern Guard outside.
Ordinary people can't go in and out as they please. Ning Xuefei did not try to persuade him to stay. Then I'll have to trouble you. Lin Yi thought about it and didn't reject the offer. The guy had given him a legitimate excuse, but he was still a stranger. He might give himself away if someone were to come back and check him. The two immediately went out. As expected, the security outside was much tighter than usual.
Every corner was guarded by fully armed Northern Guard.
Not even a fly could escape. However, when Ning Xuefei saw Lin Yi out from the back door, the Northern Guard did not question him. They just looked at Lin Yi from head to toe, bowed to Ning Xuefei, and raised their hands to let them go. It seemed that Ning Xuefei's performance just now had worked. Otherwise, even if Ning Xuefei was accompanying him, they would not let him go without asking questions. After leaving the Gathering Heroes Hall successfully, Lin Yi let out a sigh of relief.
Not only was he relieved, but more importantly, from the attitude of the guards, it was obvious that the temporary camouflage he made yesterday had worked. That was to say, Steward Song and the others should have concluded that Xianxia died because of an explosion.
Chapter 4027. As Lin Yi expected, as soon as Ning Xuefei returned to her residence, the elder who accompanied her in West Island came to find her. Miss, Xianxia from the Middle Island Alchemy Hall died in an explosion yesterday. Did it affect you?
Xianxia?
The loud noise yesterday was caused by the explosion of this guy's alchemy furnace? Ning Xuefei was stunned, then shook her head and said, No, I thought it was an earthquake.
I thought it was just an earthquake. But in private, Ning Shuefei couldn't help guessing that Zhang Tianjie's death might have something to do with the young man from the Hong Chamber of Commerce. Although she was insensitive, her imagination was super strong. Ning Shuefei was just guessing, but at this moment, Tian Chan, who was also in the Heroes Gathering Hall, was shocked when she heard the news from her master, Lien Xian. When the accident happened last night, the scene was quickly blocked by the Northern Guard. Tian Chan had no way to know the specific situation. She tossed and turned all night, worrying about how to deal with Zhang Tianjie, and whether Zhang Tianjie would deal with Lin Yi. She didn't expect that after one night, Zhang Tianjie was actually dead? And he was directly killed because of the explosion of the alchemy furnace? Wasn't this the same way as the junior brother of the alchemy hall who was framed and killed by her before? In an instant, a figure suddenly appeared in Tian Chan's mind. It was Lin Yi, whom she had just met last night. Chan, what's wrong with you? Seeing that Tian Chan was in a daze after hearing the news, Lien Xian couldn't help but ask curiously. No, nothing, I just feel that this thing happened too suddenly. Tian Chan quickly covered it up. Recalling the situation when she met with Lin Yi last night, although she felt it was unbelievable, she was almost sure that Lin Yi must be behind this matter. After all, Zhang Tianjie, a master in the early stage of the Gold Core realm, died because of the explosion of the alchemy furnace. This kind of thing was very strange no matter how she thought about it. In particular, he had a furnace explosion record, so it was hard not to be suspicious. Lien Xian nodded and sighed. Indeed, everything was still fine yesterday, but in the blink of an eye, something like this happened. It can only be said that fate is fickle and nature makes fools of people. However, Zhang Tianjie's death is not necessarily a bad thing for you, Chan. I know that you don't like him, and that his character is vile. He is indeed not a good choice for a good man. This way, it will save you a lot of trouble. Master, Zhang Tianjie died because of a furnace explosion during alchemy. Has this matter been settled? Tian Chan cautiously inquired. That's right. This is the unanimous conclusion of Housekeeper Song and the leaders of the other forces. Furthermore, there are indeed traces of a furnace explosion at the scene. There are also large scorch marks on Zhang Tianjie's corpse. This is something that I, along with your martial uncles, can confirm. We can eliminate the suspicion of murder. Lien Xian nodded with certainty. In that case, could it be that Zhang Tianjie was the one who suffered retribution, and it really had nothing to do with Lin Yi? There were so many big shots at the scene, including her own master, Lien Xian, who was an expert of the pill hall. If even they were deceived by someone, it would be extremely difficult. Tian Chan couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. However, she still couldn't help but suspect that Lin Yi was related to this matter. However, this was also good. At least, no one would investigate the murderer behind the scenes, and she didn't have to worry about Lin Yi anymore. However, Lien Xian's next words made Tian Chan's heart hang in the air again. Of course, this is only our preliminary conclusion. The real conclusion can only wait until we return to the pill hall. Maybe there will be an unexpected discovery. Tian Chan was immediately on tenterhooks. The pill hall, as a top force of the Middle Island, had a lot of true experts. If this matter was really done by Lin Yi, even if he could deceive these people in the extreme North Island, it was impossible for him to deceive so many experts of the pill hall. Once this matter was exposed, Lin Yi would be in trouble. All right, this matter happened too suddenly. We can't continue to participate in the following auctions. Chan, hurry up and pack your things. We're going back to the Middle Island soon. Lien Xian hurriedly instructed, then immediately turned around and left. Yes. Tian Chan responded absent-mindedly. Her mind was filled with Lin Yi's figure. If it wasn't for the fact that the conditions didn't allow it, she really wanted to find Lin Yi and ask him in person if he did it, so that she wouldn't have to be so worried. An hour later, the group of people from the pill hall gathered at the main entrance of the Heroes Gathering Hall. They brought Zhang Tianjie's charred body and set off for the Middle Island. Watching the people from the pill hall fly away, Lin Yi didn't worry too much. Even if he knew that there were many experts in the pill hall, he was still very confident in his ability to fake the scene. Don't forget that he was a miracle doctor back in the common world. After that, he even obtained Zhang Liju's personal notes. As a result, regarding the situation of Zhang Tianjie's body, even if he didn't dare to say that it was flawless, very few people would be able to see through it. Unless that person was his cheap Sherfu, Zhang Liju himself, or old Lin also came from the common world to the Middle Island. Compared to Zhang Tianjie's death, Lin Yi was more worried about Tian Chan's situation. Although he didn't have Zhang Tianjie to worry about, from the past actions of his grandpa, the vice-elder of the Pill Hole, he shouldn't be a good person. When the time came, it wasn't impossible for him to vent his anger on Tian Chan. After all, everyone knew that the reason why Zhang Tianjie had opened the cauldron to concoct the beauty pill was to make Tian Chan happy. He died from the cauldron explosion, and it was almost obvious that the vice-elder of the Pill Hall would vent his anger on Tian Chan. However, with Lin Yi's current strength and background, he couldn't even go to the Middle Island. No matter how much he worried, it was futile. For now, he could only hope that Tian Chan could deal with it herself. Just as Lin Yi raised his head and watched Tian Chan and the others leave, Hong Zhong appeared behind him with a face full of joy. He said excitedly, "Young hero Lin, your appointment letter has been sent back to the Middle Island headquarters. It has been officially registered." So fast. Lin Yi was slightly startled. From last night until now, it had only been 12 hours. The reaction speed of the headquarters of the Hong Merchant Association was really shocking. This is actually not strange. Our Hong Merchant Association is the second top merchant association in the Merchant Alliance. The auction this time is of great importance. If we reacted slowly, wouldn't we be sitting ducks? To be honest, this time even our president himself was personally waiting by the teleportation circle for news. This time, he was also the first to see the news. Hong Zhong smiled. Chapter 4028. Same to you. From now on, young hero Lin will be the honorary vice president and a member of the senior management of our Hong Chamber of Commerce. Among the 3 pavilions on the North Island, you're the only one with such an honor. Hong Zhong sighed from the bottom of his heart. Lin Yi, a newcomer of Blue Cloud Pavilion, had become the honorary vice president of the Hong Chamber of Commerce. It was a legend if it was spread out. I'm just an honorary vice president, while you, Mr. Hong, are the vice president with real power. We're not at the same level at all. I'll have to ask you to take care of me in the future, Lin Yi said modestly. This was the truth. Although the credit belonged to Lin Yi, the biggest beneficiary was Hong Zhong. He was promoted from the manager of the North Island branch to the vice president of the headquarters of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, second only to the president and the executive vice president. He was almost the third in command. This kind of promotion speed was no different from riding a rocket. Young hero Lin, you're flattering this old man. With young hero Lin's shocking ability, not to mention the vice president, even if I were to sit in the president's position, I would still have to rely on you. Hong Zhong shook his head and burst into laughter. Then he sighed and said, "However, it's true that time makes the hero. I've been working hard for decades, but I've been stuck in the position of the manager of the North Island branch. Now that I've experienced a crisis, I'm suddenly promoted to the position of vice president. It's unreal." There's an old saying in the secular world, risk and benefit are always proportional. Lin Yi nodded. Thanks to young hero Lin, I was able to get out of danger this time. Otherwise, I'm afraid I wouldn't even be able to keep my position as the manager of the branch. I would have become a scapegoat for those above me. I wouldn't have the glory I have today, Hong Zhong said with lingering fear. There were no flashes of swords in the business world, but the dangers within were far greater. Even Hong Zhong couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat when he thought about the sudden crisis. Thank goodness he had Lin Yi with him. While the two of them were talking, the new day of the auction had already begun in the clamor. Hong Zhong immediately suggested, although the mission has been completed, the 4 Islands auction is a rare opportunity. If young hero Lin has no objections, we can stay on this extreme North Island for 2 more days. If you see anything good on the way, young hero Lin can just tell me and I will definitely help you get it. It will be a token of my gratitude. Young hero Lin, please don't refuse. Seeing that Hong Zhong was so sincere, Lin Yi naturally couldn't refuse. He nodded and said, "Well, thank you in advance, Mr. Hong. I also want to see what good is there." This time, he owed Hong Zhong too much. If he didn't let Hong Zhong compensate him in private, the other party would feel apologetic. This kind of feeling might not be a good thing if it accumulated for a long time. Moreover, it wasn't suitable for long-term cooperation in the future. He might as well let Hong Zhong ease his feelings a little. In any case, Hongzhong didn't look like someone who lacked spiritual jades. Compared to yesterday's auction, although the scale of today's auction was a bit lower, if one were to talk about the oddities of the items being auctioned, it would definitely surpass the previous one. It was an eye-opener. There were many things that even the professional experts present couldn't explain. They could only vaguely evaluate that this item was extraordinary, and the specific uses needed to be explored. Lin Yi had always been very interested in these strange things. Even if he couldn't figure out the truth, there was still a ghostly thing that had lived for thousands or tens of thousands of years in the space of the jade pendant. He could more or less see something. If he wasn't careful, he might accidentally find a treasure like the star inkstone. Wouldn't that be a big profit? However, it wasn't only Lin Yi who was interested in these strange things. The others also had the same thoughts of picking up leftovers, especially Nan Tianba's group. Because of the existence of Wuxia, who had read a lot, their ability to pick up leftovers was far beyond that of ordinary people. While Lin Yi was busy picking up leftovers with these people, Tian Chan had already followed the people from the Pill Hall and Zhang Tianjia's corpse back to the Middle Island. After hearing the news of Zhang Tianjia's death, the Pill Hall, which had always been quiet, suddenly erupted. Especially Zhang Tianjia's grandfather, the vice head of the Pill Hall, Zhang Dongjue, almost fainted on the spot. Zhang Tianjia was the only master of the golden core stage among his grandchildren, and he was also a refiner. He had unlimited potential, and he had always had high hopes for him. He was being groomed as a successor, and now, after a trip to the extreme North Island, he came back as a charred corpse. How could he accept this? Who did it? These two words came out of Zhang Dongjue's hoarse voice, as if it came from hell. It made all the disciples of the Pill Hall tremble in fear. Other than Zhang Liju and a few other disciples, everyone else was trembling under Zhang Dongjue's aggressive gaze. In the end, an elder who led the team to the northernmost island this time had no choice but to bite the bullet and stand up to explain. Deputy Hallmaster, young Master Zheng's death was not a homicide, but when he was refining pills last night, his cauldron accidentally exploded. Cauldron exploded? Zhang Dongjue looked at him coldly and raged. Tianjia was a level 4 refiner, and a master of the golden core stage. How dare you say that he died from a cauldron explosion? Why don't you blow one up for me? This elder was so scared that he shrunk his neck, speechless. One couldn't blame Zhang Dongjue for reacting like this. In fact, even these people found it hard to believe at first, but after checking the scene and the corpse, they finally came to the conclusion that it was a cauldron explosion. Humph. I don't believe this stupid conclusion of yours at all. Go get all the elders here. I'll check again. Zhang Dongjue gritted his teeth and roared. As the vice head of the Pill Hall, when Zhang Liju wasn't here, Zhang Dongjue was pretty much the final decision-maker in the Pill Hall. Even those elders with high positions wouldn't go against him easily. Much less something like this. Seeing that all the elders had arrived, Tian Chan's heart suddenly jumped to her throat. Everyone in front of her was a famous big shot in Middle Island. Putting aside their identity as super alchemists, whether it was their strength or their foresight, they were far from ordinary people. Especially when it came to the inspection of a cauldron explosion, they were the experts among the experts. Holding her breath, Tian Chan watched as all the elders went up to check the corpses one by one. She had never felt so nervous before, afraid that these people would notice something unusual. Chapter 4029. How is this possible? Zhang Dongju did not give up and personally went forward to check on his grandson's body. However, judging from the various signs on his body, especially the burns that were clearly caused by the pill fire, any expert alchemist could see that Zhang Tianjia had indeed died from the explosion of the furnace. This time, Zhang Dongju himself was speechless as he fell to the ground in a daze. If Zhang Tianjia was killed by someone else, then no matter how he flared up, no matter how he pursued the matter, it would not be too much. But now that he died from the explosion of the furnace during alchemy, other than blaming himself for being stupid, who else could he blame? Tian Chan heaved a sigh of relief when she saw that. As long as it had nothing to do with Lin Yi, then no matter how Zhang Tianjia died, it didn't matter. This was the retribution that God gave him. He deserved to die. However, Zhang Dongju was silent for a moment before he suddenly stood up from the ground and said, "Any alchemist, unless they have no other choice, would absolutely not refine pills in an unfamiliar place. They are afraid of accidents like the explosion of the furnace. Now, this hallmaster wants to know, for no reason, why did Xianxia suddenly think of refining pills in the northern island?" This Everyone who was going to the northern island couldn't help but focus their eyes on Tian-chan. Tian-chan was shocked. Just now she was still worried for Lin Yi, and she didn't expect that in the blink of an eye, she would be in danger. Zhang Dongju was not a good person to begin with, and now that he was immersed in the pain of losing his grandson, once he vented his anger on her, he could do anything. Could it be because of you, bitch? Zhang Dongju's gaze suddenly turned cold. Of course, he knew what kind of person his grandson was. Previously, for the sake of this woman who came from the secular world, he disregarded his dignity and pestered her. He even wanted Zhang Dongju to put down his old face and help him get engaged. In order to please this bitch, he opened the furnace to refine pills in the northern island. Only Xianxia would do such a stupid thing. Zhang Dongju's face was unfriendly as he approached Tian-chan step by step. He didn't like this lowly woman who came from the secular world. Now, he even caused the death of his most beloved grandson. How could he allow such a scourge to remain in the pill hall? Vice Hallmaster, Zhang Tianjie clearly died because his cauldron exploded while he was refining pills. If you want to blame Chan or a woman, don't you think it's a little embarrassing? Xianxia saw that the situation was bad. He quickly stepped forward and stood in front of Tian-chan. Humph. You didn't teach your disciples properly. This hallmaster hasn't even settled the score with you. Yet you still dare to stand out and protect my traitorous disciple. My great-grandson died in the hands of you bitches. The heavens were truly blind. Men, arrest the two of them for this hallmaster. Zhang Dongjue waved his hand and ordered in an overbearing manner. Xianxia and Tian-chan looked at each other, their hearts sinking. Now that the head Zhang Liju wasn't here, and the other disciples were all staying out of this, the entire Hall of Elixir had become Zhang Dongjue's word. If they really were to be arrested and punished like this, they wouldn't be able to escape. The consequences of having one's cultivation, and even one's divine sense crippled, were unimaginable. However, if they dared to resist in public, the consequences would be even more severe. No one would dare say no even if they were to be killed on the spot. Just as the two of them were stuck between a rock and a hard place, a voice came from the door, causing everyone present to freeze. Just because of a little bit of anger, you want to be punished by the hall law? I don't even know when the pill hall became a gang. The voice came from the doorway. However, by the time everyone reacted, this figure had already appeared in the middle of the lobby. He was wearing a familiar black robe, looking like an immortal. Out of this world, this was the head of the Elixir Hall, the legendary Elixir Saint, Zhang Liju. Greetings, head. Everyone present knelt down at the same time and kowtowed respectfully. Even Zhang Dongjue, who had always been high and mighty, could only obediently pay his respects with a stiff expression. Zhang Liju, this miracle Dr. Dan, wasn't just a legend on the outside, he was a god within the Hall of Elixir. All the disciples worshipped him from the bottom of their hearts, and his fame and reputation were far above that of the vice-head Zhang Dongjue. Zhang Liju had always been secretive, and when he was out, Zhang Dongjue could do whatever he wanted. But now that he was back, Zhang Dongjue didn't even dare to fart. Zhang Liju didn't even need to do anything. Just a word from him was enough to make him fall to the ground. Get up. Zhang Liju waved his hand and looked at Xianxia and Tian-chan. Don't be scared, our pill hall is a place for elixirs. As long as you don't go against your masters, no one will dare to do anything to you. Xianxia and Tian-chan were overjoyed and nodded. Yes, thank you for your kindness, head. Zhang Dongjue gritted his teeth on the side, but there was nothing he could do. Even if he had 10 times more courage, he wouldn't dare go against Zhang Liju's words in front of everyone. He could only hold it in. With that, Zhang Liju turned his head and looked at Zhang Tianjie's body in front of him. Ha! He looked at the wounds on the body and couldn't help but think, a playful smile on his face. Zhang Dongjue thought that Zhang Liju had found something fishy, and since it was his grandson's death, he didn't dare to be careless. Head, is there anything wrong? Wrong? Zhang Liju glanced at him. Of course not. He's a 4th-level refiner, and he died from an explosion. Since when did our pill hall become so lousy? Zhang Dongjue. There's something wrong with your management. Wah! Zhang Dongjue almost choked to death. He couldn't hide the sadness on his face. His grandson died, and he said there was something wrong with his management? However, Zhang Dongjue didn't dare say anything in front of Zhang Liju. He could only hold his nose and admit, "You're right, head, I will try my best to improve in the future. I won't let you down." Tian looked at Zhang Dongjue's reaction and couldn't help but feel happy. At the same time, she was a little puzzled. Looking at Zhang Liju's reaction, it was obvious that he had found something, but for some reason, he didn't say anything. What she didn't know was that Zhang Liju had indeed found something strange on Zhang Tianjie's body. As the publicly recognized pill saint, no matter how good Lin Yi's disguise was, there was no way he could hide it from him. Chapter 40-30. But, the combination of qi and refinement fire would produce unparalleled power, and this was something very few people in the world knew about. Even Zhang Liju himself had only discovered it by accident and recorded it in his notes. The chances of a normal person knowing about this was next to nothing. So, although Zhang Liju was confused, he didn't say it out in front of everyone. All right, this matter ends here. You can all leave now. Zhang Liju waved his hand and dismissed the crowd. With him saying it himself, no matter how much Dongjue disagreed with him, he couldn't do anything about it. Zhang Tianjie's death was final. After saying that, Zhang Liju disappeared right in front of everyone's eyes. He came and went without a trace, just like a master. According to his usual style, after disappearing, he would most likely travel the world again. Who knew how long it would be before he showed up in front of everyone again? But, even if Zhang Liju was nowhere to be seen, since he had already said this, no one would dare disobey him. Even if Zhang Dongjue wanted to go against him, he wouldn't have the guts to do so. Zhang Dongjue stared at Xianxia and Tian with hatred in his eyes. All right, since the Hall Master has forgiven you 2 of your sins, I can let it go, but Tian and my grandson Tianjie had an engagement. Although he's gone now, the engagement is still valid. I want to hold a ghost marriage for them. As soon as the words were spoken, everyone at the scene was stunned speechless. The so-called engagement was just something that Zhang Tianjie had been pestering Tian, wanting Dongjue to help them get engaged. Until now, it was just a one-sided talk. There was no actual ceremony at all, and he had the cheek to say that there was an engagement? Zhang Tianjie died from the explosion of the furnace, but Tian, a beautiful girl, had to marry a dead man for no reason at all. Zhang Liju had just left, and Zhang Dongjue was acting like a tyrant. Wasn't he a little too much? No, this is Er's lifelong happiness. Vice Hallmaster, don't go too far. Xianxia hurriedly stood up and stopped him. With her status and strength, although she was far from being able to go against Zhang Dongjue, she was still Tian's master. She couldn't turn a blind eye to this matter. Humph, do you think you have the right to speak here? Why aren't you scramming to the side? Zhang Dongjue's eyes flashed with a vicious glint. Although Zhang Liju had said in front of everyone that he couldn't punish the master and disciple, if he really wanted to. There were at least 100 ways to make these 2 bitches live a life worse than death, and no one could find fault with them. Xianxia still wanted to insist, but at this time, Tian, who was behind her, gently tugged on her sleeve. Master, there's no need. Your disciple will agree to him. What? Everyone was shocked again, including Zhang Dongjue. They could not help but be slightly taken aback. Any normal girl wouldn't agree to a ghost marriage with a dead person so easily, right? Not to mention, the so-called marriage contract that Tian was carrying was a non-existent thing from start to finish. If that's the case, then prepare yourself. The day of the burial is the day of the marriage. According to my original plan, you should be buried alive with Tianjie to accompany him. But in order to not let the Hall Master misunderstand, I'll let you stay alive to guard his coffin. Zhang Dongjue looked deeply at Tian nodded silently. With Zhang Liju's words as a guarantee, Zhang Dongjue definitely wouldn't let her be buried with Zhang Tianjie. This was something that she had expected, and that was why she agreed to it. Marrying a dead man in the prime of her lifetime, this was an extremely tragic thing for anyone, especially Tian, who was a disciple of the Hall of Elixirs with a bright future. This was a nightmare, but in Tian's eyes, this was even better. Middle Island was the gathering place for various forces. Naturally, there were many hedonistic young masters like Zhang Tianjie. As the saying goes, beauty is the source of trouble. With Tian's beauty, it was easy for her to attract trouble. Even if Zhang Tianjie died, there would be a second and a third one in the future. Now, with the title of widow, coupled with Zhang Dongjue's influence, no one would dare to pursue and harass Tian in the future. Plus, the situation just now was very clear. If she rejected, Zhang Dongjue could find even more vicious ways to punish her and her disciple. Tian Chan might as well just agree. As for this so-called engagement, when her strength reached a certain level in the future, she could cancel it with just a word. Just like Zhang Liju, who dared to go against his words. So the only thing she had to do now was to endure, train hard, and wait patiently for that day to come. Zhang Tianjie's death had finally come to an end. Because of Zhang Liju's silence, Lin Yi, who was far away in the North Island, had successfully escaped. But now, he had encountered a new problem. Because he had successfully gotten rid of Zhang Tianjie, not only did he solve Tian Chan's problem, but he also got back the 10-piece weapon set that he had lost. For Lin Yi, this trip to the Northern Island could be said to be a success. However, where there were people there would be Jianghu, and where there would be Jianghu, there would be conflicts and killings. Especially this time, Nan Tianba and the others had also come to the extreme North Island. In the next few days of the auction, with Hong Zhong's support, Lin Yi could be said to have gained a lot. He got his hands on a few rare treasures. Although he couldn't tell what they were used for, at least he could be sure that the items that Lin Yi had his eyes on were not ordinary useless items. In the future, if there was a suitable opportunity, they might shine brightly. Whatever Lin Yi had his eyes on, Yu Zha from Nan Tianba's group also had their eyes on. It was a pity that their wealth was not on the same level as Lin Yi's backer, Hong Zhong, who was a super tycoon. Hong Zhong wanted to repay Lin Yi wholeheartedly. Because of this, how could he easily let the things that Lin Yi had his eyes on go to someone else? Unless he met a sucker like Zhang Tianjie. Otherwise, Nan Tianba and his group had no ability to compete with him at all. Damn it, every time I saw a treasure, it was taken away by that bastard. If I didn't guess wrong, those treasures are not only useful for the masters at the Foundation establishment stage, but even for the masters at the Golden Core stage or higher, they should have unexpected uses. They are all good things that can only be found by luck. Yu Zha rolled his eyes and gritted his teeth. Chapter 4031. Haha, it's good that he won it. We don't have to waste our spiritual jades. Later, we'll snatch them all together with the star inkstone. Nan Tianba sneered indifferently and glanced at Lin Yi and Hong Zhong in the distance. The two were receiving the auction items and seemed to be ready to call it a day. Just as they guessed, Lin Yi and Hong Zhong were ready to go home. Lin Yi was still a newcomer in the welcome pavilion. Even if he had the help of his senior brother, he couldn't leave for too long. Hong Zhong was going to report to Middle Island soon, so they all had their own things to do. After saying goodbye to Steward Song, the two immediately boarded the flying spiritual beasts and set off for North Island. Young hero Lin, it seems that this return trip won't be so peaceful. Hong Zhong suddenly looked back and shook his head slightly. Indeed, we've just left the patrol area of the Northern Guard. These people are really impatient. Lin Yi nodded. This time, he had broken through to the peak of the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm, so his range of perception had increased a lot. He had already noticed the people following behind him. Before he finished speaking, the flying spiritual beasts behind him suddenly sped up and caught up with them in the blink of an eye. Moreover, there was more than one of them. Old man over there, hurry up and hand over the spiritual jades and treasures, or I'll throw you down to feed the sea monsters. A masked man with a hedgehog's head laughed hideously. Then, on the other flying spiritual beast, a feminine man with wavy long hair sneered. Don't even think about running away. It's useless. The flying spiritual beasts under your feet are just the most useless ones. You want to get rid of the flying spiritual beasts under our feet? That's just a pipe dream, so I advise you to be sensible. If you cooperate, I can guarantee that I'll only rob you of your treasures, not your lives. Lin Yi and Hong Zhong looked at each other and couldn't help but laugh. There were 4 or 5 people standing on the backs of the 2 flying spiritual beasts in front of them. Although each of them was not weak, they were at least in the late stage of the Foundation establishment realm. The leader, the man with the hedgehog's head and long hair, was at the peak of the Foundation establishment realm. However, with just this level of strength, he dared to rob the 2 of them. They really didn't know what to say. It would have been fine if they had only targeted Lin Yi, but now that an unfathomable super expert like Hong Zhong was right beside them, they actually had the guts to rush over. Their courage was simply commendable. Little did they know. This group of people were fearless because they didn't know. Hong Zhong had always hidden his strength and had always presented himself as an amiable businessman. Very few people knew of his true strength. In the eyes of outsiders, Hong Zhong was merely a businessman. If he was already extremely powerful, then why would the Hong Chamber of Commerce hire so many foreign experts? Was it because they had too many spiritual jades? Seeing that the two of them had a strange expression on their faces, yet they did not say anything. The man with the hedgehog hair immediately said angrily, "Fuck, are you too tired of living? Hurry up and hand over the things. I'll count to 3. If you don't hand over the spiritual jades and treasures obediently, then don't blame me for not letting you live. 1, 2. Just as the man with the hedgehog hair was about to count to 3, Lin Yi suddenly spoke. Instead of begging for mercy as everyone expected, he said with a face full of sarcasm, "Heroes of the underworld, may I ask a question? Did you all become a monk halfway through your training?" "What do you mean?" The masked men were all stunned after hearing that. Lin Yi shrugged and said with a faint smile, "Nothing. I was just thinking, since you all have your faces covered, why don't you put away your waist tag as well? Why didn't you put away your waist tag as well? Isn't that very unprofessional?" The masked men were shocked and hurriedly looked down in panic. Then, their gazes finally focused on the leader of the group, the man with the hedgehog hair. He had a yellow waist tag on his waist, engraved with the words, Wan Tong, which was clearly the symbol of the Wan Tong Grand Assembly. Under the gaze of everyone, even with his face covered, the embarrassment of the man with the hedgehog hair could be seen. His face was so red that it reached the roots of his ears. Clowns who can't be seen in public. Hong Zhong shook his head speechlessly. The people in front of him were not worthy of his attention. What he was referring to was naturally the all-access gathering. Although Hong Zhong was the one who was jointly targeted by the previous evil plan, as a businessman, he still had to praise his clever means. But now it was obvious that they had lost, but they still used the inferior trick of sending people to rob them, which was looked down upon. Even if they sent people to rob them, they should at least send a more powerful person. Sending such a group of idiots with neither strength nor brains, was this an insult to people's intelligence? Being watched by his men behind him, especially by the long-haired man on the other side, the hedgehog hair suddenly became angry. "What are you looking at? Even if my identity is exposed, anyway, this kid and the old man must die. As long as they are fed to the sea monster, no one will know." Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh after listening. Feeding the sea monster is such an interesting thing. I think it is more suitable for a man with a temperament like you. How about you give us a demonstration first? Demonstration? Demonstration your ass. The man with the hedgehog hair scolded, immediately picked up the giant machete beside him and shouted, "Get over there, I will chop him alive today." Several people behind him showed their weapons with ferocious faces. At the same time, a group of people led by the long-haired man also flanked Lin Yi from the other side. Hong Zhong was about to make a move, but he saw that Lin Yi had already made a move before him. Having just been promoted to the peak of the middle stage of foundation establishment, Lin Yi wanted to test his strength, especially the move that he had recently developed. Condensing true qi in one hand and alchemy fire in the other, before the hedgehog hair group could get close, Lin Yi had already put his hands together, and then condensed a super bomb in his hand, and directly bombarded it. Boom! With a loud explosion, the calm sea suddenly set off a huge wave, and a small mushroom cloud appeared in the sky, which did not disperse for a long time. Such a shocking movement directly stunned the long-haired man and his group. When they saw the hedgehog head and his group, who had clearly been blasted into charred black corpses, fell into the vast sea together with the ferocious birds and spirit beasts, and were eaten by several ferocious sea beasts in the blink of an eye, everyone was so scared that they almost peed their pants. Chapter 4032. You're lying. Such a terrifying fiend actually pretended to be an expert at the peak of the middle stage of the foundation establishment realm. Wasn't he too good at pretending? It's your turn next. Lin Yi turned his head and smiled gently at them. Fuck. The long-haired man was so scared that his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. His face turned pale, and he hurriedly shouted at his subordinates. "Why are you still not running? Do you want to accompany that stupid hedgehog head down to feed the sea monster? I'm telling you, the center will avenge us." After saying that, the group of people hurriedly whipped the spirit birds under their feet and ran away at full speed. One of them lost his footing and fell directly into the sea. He was swallowed by the sea monster below, but they didn't care at all. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared before Lin Yi's eyes. The speed of this spirit beast is quite fast indeed. Lin Yi paused, not at all surprised. He'd wanted to kill them all in one go, but he didn't expect the mount to be this fast. What did he threaten us with before he left? What did he mean? But it didn't matter. He wasn't afraid that others would see his trick. They only saw Zhang Tianjie's body and didn't see the power of Lin Yi's alchemic fire Zhen Qi bomb. The bodies of the people killed by Lin Yi fell directly into the sea and were eaten by the sea monster. It was impossible for others to see them carefully, not to mention that Zhang Tianjie's body was disguised by Lin Yi. However, before he left, the man threatened Lin Yi, but he didn't hear it clearly. That's natural. Spirit birds have always been known for their speed, but they can't carry as much weight as ordinary flying spirit beasts. Moreover, ordinary people can't control them, and the flight process is not stable enough, so it's not suitable for our Chamber of Commerce. Hong Zhong paused, and then said with concern, I didn't hear it clearly either. I guess they formed a group of interests. Young hero Lin, are you okay? Although Hong Zhong was amazed by Lin Yi's performance just now, he could also tell that Lin Yi had suffered some injuries. It's nothing, it's just a minor injury, Lin Yi said with a nonchalant smile as he circulated the mantra in his body to heal himself. Even if he only used it at the lowest level, the power of this killer move, which was a combination of the vital chi bomb and the core fire bomb, was enough to instantly kill an expert in the great completion of the foundation establishment stage. However, the price he had to pay was also not small, because if he used it at close range, he himself would also suffer from a considerable backlash. Although he could enter the space of the jade pendant to heal quickly, and Lin Yi could afford this price, if he used it in actual combat, it would still be a move that risked his life. With one move, regardless of whether the opponent died or not, he would be the first to be heavily injured. This was a huge disadvantage. In addition, although the time needed to accumulate chi for this move was obviously much shorter than that of the vital chi bomb, it was still much slower than conventional martial arts. If the opponent had not spoken so much nonsense just now, Lin Yi was afraid that he would not have had the chance to prepare. It could be seen that this move was powerful, but if it wanted to become a conventional killer move, he would need to think of ways to continuously improve it in the future. That's good, young hero Lin, have a good rest. Hong Zhong nodded at Lin Yi and did not ask too much. From Lin Yi's shocking move just now, Hong Zhong could actually easily guess that the death of Zhang Tianjie from Middle Island Alchemy Hall was most likely caused by Lin Yi. However, he did not intend to ask too much. If Lin Yi wanted to say, he would naturally say it. Since he did not want to say, then he would pretend that he did not know. In his eyes, there was no difference between Zhang Tianjie and the person from the Universal Chamber of Commerce who was killed just now. They were all competitors of the Hong Chamber of Commerce. As long as they threatened the Hong Chamber of Commerce, they would be killed without mercy. Lin Yi replied with a hmm. Just as he was sitting cross-legged, he heard the sound of an extremely fast bird flying behind him. Those people actually had the guts to go and return. Could it be that they saw that he was injured? Lin Yi was slightly stunned, but he immediately knew that he was wrong. This time, there were only 3 people chasing after him. Did you all see that move just now? Martial nephew, what do you think? Nan Tianba asked one of the people behind him in a deep voice. Reporting to martial uncle, although it was too far away and I couldn't see it clearly, I can confirm that this feeling was exactly the same as when Master was killed. It can be seen that Lin Yi is definitely second Lin. Wuxia said confidently. Then what are we waiting for? Big brother, let's hurry up and catch up. Nan Tianmen couldn't wait any longer. He was now only 1 step away from the gold core stage. His desire for the star ink stone was stronger than anyone else's. Good. It seems that after that kid used that move just now, he's already exhausted. As for that old man Hong Zhong, he's just a businessman. I've been in the North Island for so many years, but I've never heard of him being an expert. There's nothing to worry about. Let's do it. Nan Tianba ordered with a grin. In a moment, the bird that Nan Tianba and the other 2 were riding on had already appeared above Lin Yi and Hong Zhong's head. Sure enough, they caught up. These 3 people are really lingering around. Lin Yi raised his eyebrows slightly. Back at the auction, he had already noticed the existence of these 3 people. At that time, he was really surprised for a while, but he didn't pay attention to them. Above his head, Nan Tianba said arrogantly, Should I call you Lin Yi, or should I call you by another name, second Lin? My third brother, Nan Tianyong. Was it you who killed him? Lin Yi was about to speak, but Hong Zhong pressed down on his shoulder, indicating that he didn't need to pay attention to him and just focus on healing his injuries. Not talking? That means you're admitting it. The hatred of killing my master is absolutely irreconcilable. Martial uncles, please help this disciple. Wuxia pretended to have a sorrowful expression and wailed heartbreakingly. I don't need you to say it. Nan Tianmen curled his lips and pointed at Lin Yi. I'll give you two choices. One is to throw you down to feed the sea beasts and die without a complete corpse. The other is to take the initiative to hand over the star inkstone and the treasures you've been auctioning these past 2 days. Of course you'll still die, but I'll leave your corpse intact. Choose for yourself. Hee, I'm going to die either way. You're still as overbearing as ever. Hong Zhong suddenly laughed. However, last time, I only threw you onto the street to embarrass myself. This time, in the vast sea, if you get thrown down again, you'll lose your life. Chapter 4033. Old Man Hong Zhong. Listen up. This is the vast North Sea, not your Hong Merchants Association. There aren't any guest officials who can stand up for you. If you don't know what's good for you, I'll make sure you die together with this kid. Threatened the Southern Heavenly Gate. Oh. From what you're saying, if I just stand by and watch, you'll let me live. Hong Zhong said in surprise. That's right. We're looking for this brat purely to avenge our third brother. We don't have any intention of going against the Hong Merchant Guild. Of course, there's a prerequisite. Shopkeeper Hong better not come out and get in the way. After all, fists and feet have no eyes. If you accidentally get hurt, then there's nothing we can do. This time, it was Nan Tianba who spoke. If they killed Lin Yi here, they weren't afraid that Hong Zhong would go back and tell others. With the righteous reason of avenging their third brother, Nan Tianyong, this was purely a grudge of the Jianghu. Even the higher-ups of the 3 great pavilions wouldn't interfere and would turn a blind eye to it. However, if they killed Hong Zhong to hide the news, it wouldn't be a good thing for Nan Tianba and the others. No matter what, Hong Zhong was an important figure in the Hong Merchant Guild. Even if they did it secretly, the Hong Merchant Guild would still be able to find some clues. At that time, they wouldn't be able to walk away unscathed. So that's how it is. It seems like you guys are quite tactful. You clearly had the opportunity to take advantage of me, yet you still maintained such restraint. You're worthy of praise. Hong Zhong said unhurriedly. Then he changed the topic. Unfortunately, you are still too stupid. What did you say? Nan Tianba's expression darkened. Southern Sky Gate and Wuxia also had unfriendly expressions. I said you guys are too stupid. You actually thought that I would just stand by and watch young hero Lin's matter. If this isn't stupid, then what is? Hong Zhong laughed mockingly. My relationship with young hero Lin is not something you can imagine. We've known each other for a long time. Lin Yi was slightly startled. He didn't understand the meaning of Hong Zhong's last sentence. Known each other for a long time? Was he trying to prove something to Nan Tianba? Old man, you're courting death. The South Heaven Gate's expression turned hideous, but it was filled with a hint of joy. If it wasn't for the fact that he was afraid of the influence of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, he would have dismembered Hong Zhong to vent the hatred in his heart. Originally, he didn't have this opportunity because Nan Tianba wouldn't have allowed him to do so. But now, Hong Zhong was courting death, and he couldn't stop him even if he wanted to, so he couldn't blame anyone else. Shopkeeper Hong. I'll say it again. I don't want to become enemies with the Hong Merchant Guild, and I don't have any intention of killing you. You better know what's good for you. I'm sure you've heard that I'm not a very patient person. Killing someone on this vast ocean is just a small matter. Nan Tianba said with a gloomy expression. I've naturally heard of the 3 heroes of the Nan clan. However, aren't you a little too confident if you think you can scare me with just that? Hong Zhong's expression became a little playful. It looks like you're really courting death. Then I won't stop you. Die in peace, old thing. Nan Tianba suddenly stood up, emitting a terrifying aura from his body. Even the spiritual beast under his feet was trembling in fear, as if it was unable to maintain its posture. However, the weak spiritual beast did not show any reaction from Hong Zhong and Lin Yi. It was as if Nan Tianba's aura could not affect it at all. Deadly Overlord Fist. Nan Tianba's figure was like a savage demon god. The simple punch was accompanied by an incomparably domineering aura. Even the surface of the ocean that was tens of feet below began to ripple. The South Heaven Gate and Wuxia were behind him. They looked at Hong Zhong and Lin Yi as if they were looking at dead people. Even among the Golden Core stage experts, Nan Tianba was considered a troublesome character. With just a weak old man like Hong Zhong and Lin Yi's insignificant strength, they would not be able to withstand even a single attack. The only thing they needed to pay attention to right now was to make sure that the two of them didn't fall into the sea. After all, they hadn't gotten their hands on the Star Inkstone and those other rare treasures yet. If they killed the two of them and missed out on the treasures, that would be a huge joke. However, facing Nan Tianba's shocking killing move, both Lin Yi and Hong Zhong maintained a calm expression as if nothing had happened. Lin Yi was still sitting cross-legged to heal his injuries, while Hong Zhong did not put his opponent in his eyes at all. Hong Zhong watched helplessly as the life-stealing overlord fist was about to reach his head. Finally, he lazily stretched out a hand and swatted it as if he was swatting a fly. Then, a giant golden palm suddenly appeared beside Nan Tianba and sent him flying with a single slap. Ha! The South Heaven Gate and Yu Zhe were both dumbfounded. As a Golden Core stage expert, not only did Nan Tianba not kill his opponent instantly, he was also sent flying by Hong Zhong's palm. Wasn't this too miraculous of a turn of events? Luckily, the two of them had been preparing to fish up Hong Zhong and Lin Yi's corpses. Now, they were able to catch Nan Tianba before he fell into the ocean. Otherwise, no matter how strong Nan Tianba was, once he fell into the ocean, he would only become food for the sea beasts. There was no other possibility. After being caught by the South Heaven Gate and Yu Zhe, Nan Tianba was still in a state of shock from the slap. After a long time, he finally regained his senses. When he looked at Hong Zhong again, his expression was astonishingly filled with an unprecedented fear. As for the South Heaven Gate and Yu Zhe, they looked as if they had seen a ghost. Even Nan Tianba was sent flying by a single slap. If it was them instead, wouldn't they be slapped to the ground? He was clearly just a businessman. How could this ordinary-looking old man have such terrifying strength? Seeing that your uncle has some connections with my Hong Merchant Guild, I won't kill you this time. However, if there is a next time, and you dare to jump up and down in front of me again, you better be prepared to die. A terrifying murderous intent suddenly flashed across Hong Zhong's calm expression. Before this, he was still somewhat concerned about Nan Tianba's background. However, now that he was the vice president of the Hong Merchant Guild, he, Hong Zhong, could be considered a person with real power even in the Middle Island, which was full of influential people. He was basically on the same level as Zhang Dongjue, so there was no need for him to be afraid. Even if he were to kill Nan Tianba, there wouldn't be too much trouble. However, he hadn't gone back to report on his new job yet. If he was too arrogant, it would be easy for others to criticize him. Chapter 40-34. Nan Tianba was completely scared out of his wits. Nan Tianmen and Yu Zhe did not have the guts to fight against the unfathomable Hong Zhong. They could only timidly nod their heads. Why aren't you scramming? Hong Zhong narrowed his eyes. The spirit beast beneath Nan Tianba and the other two instantly became frightened birds. It desperately flapped its wings and quickly fled. Elder Hong, thank you this time. Lin Yi slowly opened his eyes. Not at all. It's just a small matter. However, these people are not easy to deal with. Although they will restrain themselves a bit when they return to the Northern Island, young hero Lin should still be a bit more vigilant. Hong Zhong reminded him. Thank you for the reminder. Lin Yi smiled. With his current strength, he still could not deal with an expert like Nan Tianba. However, it was more than enough to protect himself. In his phone, he still had a trump card that he had not used yet. On the other side, Nan Tianba and the other two finally let out a sigh of relief after fleeing for half an hour. Only when they were several hundred kilometers away from Hong Zhong and Lin Yi did they slowly calm down. Among the three of them, none of them had thought that this would be the result. They originally thought that with Nan Tianba personally making a move, it would be a piece of cake. But in the end, they had actually kicked such a shocking iron plate. Yu Zhe! Nan Tianba suddenly opened his mouth weakly. This time, his injuries were not too serious. The key was that the psychological blow he suffered was too great. It was like falling from the clouds to the ground. Here, great martial uncle. Yu Zhe quickly pulled himself together and stepped forward. Nan Tianba looked at Yu Zhe and suddenly raised his hand to slap his face. Yu Zhe was caught off guard and was almost slapped off the back of the spirit beast. Fortunately, he grabbed the saddle and was able to keep his life. With great difficulty, He climbed back onto the back of the spirit beast. Before Wuxia could steady himself, Nan Tianba immediately slapped him again.
Wuxia's cheek quickly swelled up.
Seeing that Nan Tianba was about to make another move, Wuxia was scared silly. He quickly bowed down and kowtowed, begging for mercy. Great martial uncle, this disciple was wrong. This disciple was really wrong. I beg great martial uncle to forgive this disciple this time.
Then tell me, where did you go wrong?
Nan Tianba said expressionlessly.
Wuxia choked. He cursed in his heart that Nan Tianba had kicked an iron plate.
However, if he were to say it out loud, it would be no different from courting death. If I remember correctly, you swore earlier that Lin Yi was Lin Heir. Nan Tianba's expression suddenly turned into one of uncontrollable anger. With Lin Yi's background, and how close he is to Shangguan Laner.
Even Ram Jie spoke up for him. Even Hong Zhong, who had such a close relationship with him, was unbelievably strong. If he wanted to kill you, it would be a piece of cake. He could just ask Hong Zhong to help him. Why would he need to pretend to be Lin Heir? Hong Zhong had also said that he had known Lin Yi for a long time. If Lin Yi wanted a staring stone, then Lin Yi wouldn't hesitate to give it to him. Why would I need to compete with you?
With his relationship with Hong Zhong, it was just a matter of a word.
Does he have nothing better to do? Is he messing with you? Do you think there's something wrong with his brain? Or do you think my brain was kicked by a donkey?
These words. Southern Heavenly Gate also expressed his agreement. After thinking about it carefully, this was indeed the case. There was no need for Lin Yi to disguise himself as Lin Heir. This was also good. Although they were rebuffed, they could at least confirm that the staring stone wasn't on Lin Yi's body. Otherwise, it would be very difficult for them to steal something from Lin Yi with their own strength. Wuxia had always been confident about this. He couldn't help but feel a bit embarrassed. He was still suspicious. But the move that Lin Yi used just now was exactly the same as when Lin Heir dealt with my master. It's exactly the same as when Lin Heir dealt with my master.
How do you explain this?
Southern Heavenly Gate thought about it and said, this isn't strange. Although I'm not a pill master, I can still see that the theory behind the pill firebomb isn't too complicated. Any pill master with a bit of talent would only need to see it a few times to be able to imitate it. He was an expert that cultivated the small phaseless god technique. In terms of imitating martial skills, he had the most authority. If he was a pill master and could create a pill fire, he would have learned the pill firebomb a long time ago.
Wuxia choked, but he didn't give up.
He couldn't help but quibble. Since Lin Yi is called Lin One, then could Lin Heir be his brother? It's just like how eldest martial uncle is called Nan Tianba and my master is called Nan Tianyong. This disciple always felt that Lin Yi's figure and temperament were very similar to Lin Heir's. Get the hell out of here. There's no use talking about this. I'll just throw you down. Nan Tianba said impatiently. If it wasn't for the fact that Wuxia had a good eye for treasures, he would have already personally dealt with this troublemaker.
Wuxia was so scared that he shrunk his neck.
He covered his burning cheeks with one hand and didn't dare to make another sound. This eldest martial uncle was famous for his decisiveness in killing. If he really made him unhappy, he might really lose his life. Now, it seemed that Lin Yi wasn't Lin Heir. This point could be confirmed. As a result, the three of them could only turn their attention back to Kong Ming Ming. However, if they wanted to take any action, they would have to carefully consider young Master Su Lingchong's attitude. They didn't know that in the few days that they had stayed on the extreme North Island, the three great pavilions of the North Island had long been in a mess. The news of Su Lingchong's disappearance was now known by everyone. Everyone was talking about this matter during their leisure time. Su Lingchong was one of the top young masters in the Soaring Sky Pavilion. In particular, he held the important position of the eldest senior brother who was in charge of the Soaring Sky Pavilion. In the eyes of everyone, he was a person with a boundless future. A while ago, he was the host of eldest Miss Shangguan's birthday banquet and showed his face in front of many important people. However, no one expected that such an influential person who was the center of attention would actually disappear for no reason. Actually, Su Lingchong didn't disappear for a long time. At the very most, it was only about 20 days. For cultivators who often had to go into closed-door training for several months or even several years, it was simply a snap of the fingers. If it was an ordinary person, they would have long gotten used to it and wouldn't even think about going missing. However, Su Lingchong was the eldest senior brother who was in charge of the Soaring Sky Pavilion. Everything from top to bottom had to go through his hands. If he didn't show up for more than 20 days consecutively, this matter was very serious.